welcome to the MinnMax Show. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Cyril Vasquez.
Hello.
Back from the dead.
That's right.
Like the Emperor himself.
Rose from my
to the
grave
table.
into a field of snow.
Fantastic. We have Jeff Marchiafava.
Hey.
We have Kyle Hilliard.
The dead speak.
Well, that is. Welcome to the MinnMax Show. We're finally doing it. This is the episode we're going to count down our 5 most anticipated games of 2020. People have been screaming for it. It's been a lifetime. Just a reminder for everybody, Chrono Trigger. Just as a concept, just please remember it.
I like it.
Yeah, it's the next installment of The Deepest Dive. If you missed last week's episode, how this works is we are taking the beloved game Chrono Trigger, breaking it up into 3 different chunks, and then talking about each section as in-depth as possible. No surface-level stuff. Very specific things fueled by the community. And
Like
so,
how many pixels are in each sprite? That's specific.
Yeah, please. I
Yes.
genuinely want people to write in with stuff like, this treasure chest here almost passed me by because it almost looks like this. And like, I want as specific as you can go. So that's going to be airing. The first installment is going to be airing on the 22nd of January. And so probably on January 20th, for sure on January 20th, we'll have a post on Patreon looking for the community's feedback on the game up until you reach the end of time, which, lo and behold, is about 4 hours in. So a shorter chunk than I imagined, but there's going to be a lot to talk about just in Chrono Trigger overall. The development, stuff like that. We'll cover a lot in that first chunk for the deepest dive on Chrono Trigger, which will be then airing on the 22nd. So please play up into the end of time, which is going to be right after like the sci-fi section, all that stuff in Chrono Trigger, and let us know what you think. It's so fun to see the community debating about what version to get. It seems like on the Discord, there's a lot of people already talking about it and like weighing in. And like, there's a bunch of people who are playing it for the first time, which I'm very excited about. I want those perspectives for sure. Cyril Vasquez, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't wait to hear all about it.
Also, me too.
Great. Heads
told
up for everybody. The Steam version, totally fine. Like, I think a lot of people are.
But it doesn't have pixelated font, right? Or it does now?
It does now. Yeah.
Okay,
Still, there's some small tweaks in the UI where you can see some remnants of mobile, but honestly, if I didn't know that version came out looking so bad and just jumped right into that, I don't think it'd be jarring at all.
Okay.
I think it's the way to go. It's $15 on Steam.
Yeah.
It's great. Also, heads up, we're going to be streaming another tabletop game this Thursday night. So if you're listening to this or watching this very early, that's right. So it's going to be Thursday night. We're going to be streaming Cash and Guns in honor of the Discord being obsessed with shootouts. We should play the ultimate tabletop shootout game, which is Cash and Guns. That's going to be 8 p.m. Central on Thursday, and it's going to be exclusive to $5 supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/MinnMax, 2 N's. All right, let's get to it. We could talk about Dragon Ball Z Kakarot this episode, but why have like early impressions? Jeffem has to soak in all that's good about Dragon Ball.
That's right. I'm learning so much.
But you have the game, yes?
Yes. I started it yesterday.
Oh my God.
Did you fall asleep?
No.
Oh, it's a good one.
So ever since you got that copy, you have not slept.
That's right.
Do you feel
Just
like it's
pure Dragon Ball.
Do you feel like it's a game that you're excited to weigh in on and play for an extended period of time, or are you immediately dreading it?
I'm not dreading it. I don't know how excited I am at this point.
Okay.
Well, we should.
It's been interesting so far.
The reason that you're questioning this is because like Cyril, you and me, we like Dragon Ball. We've been following it for a long time. Jeff, don't know anything about Dragon Ball, right?
Yeah, I had to send him the Wikipedia article for Dragons.
Although
It
actually,
was like bare minimum.
I did do a feature about Dragon Ball, a stupid column, one of my old stupid columns about Dragon Ball characters. I can't remember what the BS like reasoning behind it was, but I did have to read a lot of Dragon Ball lore, and so I do recognize some characters.
Okay.
I was like, I know this Piccolo character.
He's no good.
Yes.
But maybe
I don't
he'll get
remember
good.
any actual facts about them.
Okay, that's fine. Look, we'll save all that for next week. I'm excited to dive into that game. Genuinely, it's one of my most anticipated games of 2020, even though I don't expect it to be amazing, but I just want to go through that experience.
I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, but the reason it's not on my list is because I'm playing it. But it would have been if we'd made this list a week ago, maybe.
Yeah, so that's what this episode's all about. We're going to be ranking our top 5 most anticipated games of 2020. It's going to be intense. And, like, it's tough. I'm trying not to fudge this. I'm trying to go with the honesty in my heart of what am I most excited about when I have it in my possession to boot up and play. That is what I was trying to go off of for this, because I can get sidetracked with a lot of things like, I want to support a game like Ooblets. That looks fun. And not in my top 5. So that's how we're doing. We're going to go around the table, number 5. And as always, if somebody says your entry early, just jump in and talk about the game then. We don't need to repeat it and save it for like, that's my number 1, all that fun stuff. Okay, Cyril Vasquez. Your number 5 most anticipated game.
Did we tell you
releasing
we
in
were doing
2020.
this, Serial?
Yeah.
Because you were gone. Okay.
Yeah, there was a message in the Slack
Yeah,
channel.
you were gone. So.
So my number 5 is Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Wow.
Which I'm pretty excited about because I've played all of the ones that they've released since 0. So 0, Yakuza, Kiwami 2, 6, and Judgment. Well, it's not really a Yakuza game, but
It
same
falls
thing.
under that
Yeah.
umbrella, yeah.
It's part of the Soulsborne series, you know. But like when I played those games, to me the combat was always the thing that I eventually got I got tired of the combat way before I got tired of like the story and the characters and stuff. And I know for a lot of people, like they really enjoyed that stuff, but for me, it always felt like okay, like the regular random fights we're having in the city become super boring, and then the boss fights feel like this weird, like okay, well now you actually have to think about this combat in ways that I never found super interesting or fun. So I think them switching over to an RPG like turn-based combat system, I think is kind of exciting. I'm a little cautious about how that's going to affect the pacing. If you're like, okay, these fights that usually would take like 30 seconds or something in previous games, this is going to take me 2 minutes or something. But if they manage to like figure out how to properly pace that stuff, I think it'd be really cool. And they've been trying since basically 0 to always have like, no, play this one first. Please don't think about the fact that Yakuza has been going on forever and that there's all these like intersecting plot lines and stuff. Yeah. So this is another one of those, right? Because it's technically Yakuza 7, but they're calling it Like a Dragon because they want it to be a new beginning and it has a new protagonist. And a lot of the stuff they're doing around like, you know, how he's very like into Dragon Quest and a lot of like they're turning a lot of everyday aspects into RPG mechanics. I think is pretty interesting. So like I'm looking forward to having another one of those like kind of like very Japanese soap drama kind of stories to go. Like I'm always up for one of those games. So.
I'm totally with you, and like in a way, you know, it almost goes back to what makes Earthbound exciting, like having an RPG like in modern day-ish setting, right? Like that's why I'm looking forward to this. Like it's so rare to see an RPG basically just in a fully modern setting in an open world like Yakuza's
without a lot of like supernatural stuff, because like Persona takes place in modern day and they're like basically big, but like this feels very different from that in a lot of ways.
Is there like a time skip for Yakuza 7, like between 6 and 7, or is it like
I don't know. It might be like concurrent with maybe 6, like around that same period.
Okay.
But I don't.
But
think
it is being presented as like if you've never played Yakuza, this is another entry point for you, right?
Yeah.
Like this is all new characters.
Yeah, like the protagonist, like they're switching protagonists for the first time in the Yakuza series.
Cool.
So
yeah. So the nice thing too is we'll find out how good it is very soon based on those hot Famitsu reviews. It's coming out January 16th in Japan, and so the reviews should be online by the time you're listening to this or watching this even. So we'll probably have some vague idea of at least what people think about the Japanese version. I'm with you. I'm very excited about it. Like rewatching those trailers too. Just the mini games, of course, it's Yakuza games. There's gonna be mini games, but like they have like just go karting through the streets of Japan in this. Like that seems so silly.
A lot of the mini games are always super fun. So.
Yeah, I'm also really curious about when it's going to be released in the West. Like, what it would be the worst time for this game to come out?
The first week of
April
March.
or whatever.
Yeah, I guess April or March.
That span where every other game of 2020 is coming out?
I just worry about it hitting this window of like right when new console hype. I could see Sega being like, well, we're trying to localize it as fast as we can and get it out the door, and then it just being like, oh, do I want to play on last gen again?
Yeah, I mean, that question is going to be interesting moving forward because everything is so explicitly backwards compatible this time around, where it wasn't last time. I don't know if it'll make a huge difference. I mean, DS to 3DS, there were still games caught in that sort of whirlpool of like, you know, Okamiden is a big one that like came out right as the 3DS came out, and people forget that game exists now. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Cyril, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I've tried playing 0, Kiwami, and 6, and it's like I want to like this, and I think that turn-based RPG combat and maybe a sillier tone, like I'm all for it. I'm super excited for it.
How could it be any sillier?
I think just like
Is it like
some
the main,
okay.
like the main story's sillier, or
no? I think just like the battle animation.
Yeah,
stuff
the way they
okay.
implement RPG mechanics into the like one of your like a summon is basically calling like someone on your phone and having them come in to attack basically.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, that makes sense.
silly enough for you, big boy.
Well, because in the previous games, it's like you're babysitting this kid while you're beating people up, and you're doing karaoke and all these kind of crazy things, and so I didn't know how they could go.
it's a new
in
avenue
silly.
for silly stuff.
Yes.
That's right. That was the original name, Yakuza 7, a new avenue for silly stuff. Jeff, I'm number 5.
Number
Better than
5.
Like a Dragon.
Hey,
Like like a dragon. My number 5 is Dying Light 2.
Great choice. Did you play much of the first one?
I did.
Okay.
And more specifically, I played a ton of Dead Island, which is kind of where I got on board. And it's that weird legacy with like which ones did Techland work on, and when did they split off of Dead Island and go on to Dying Light? But basically, I think everything that Techland has done has been really good. And with Dead Island, I think Dead Island was one of the best open world zombie kind of simulation games that, like, the sense of place and the sense of danger that the original Dead Island had.
Yeah.
I still think about, and I still think that was super awesome. And the problem was that it was kind of janky, and like the controls and stuff weren't great. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't great back then.
Well, like Hoodoo Ya Voodoo.
Also, wow, I had forgotten that song something miraculously, but now it's right back in there. But that transition to Dying Light fixed a lot of that stuff, and Dying Light was a lot more fluid, and they kind of had a parkour system and kind of carried over all the cool like loot things and stuff with that, while also still having this big open world. And it's from what we've seen so far, it seems like Dying Light 2 is another like similar step forward. It seems much more fluid. They said they've added a lot more parkour mechanics and like a whole climbing system and all these kind of things.
And they're leaning much more heavily into choice, like the big demo they had a while ago. It was like, oh, are you going to flood this entire section of the city or not?
Wasn't there a quote that in one playthrough you'll see maybe half the game or something like that? Which I think is a quote that people have used before. But
yeah, I think it's like you will gain access to different areas and you may lose access to other ones. Chris Avallone is the narrative designer, which they have spoken a lot about, and that
going back to old Obsidian roots.
Yeah. KOTOR guy, right?
Yeah.
KOTOR 2, yeah.
And so the choices and narrative stuff are interesting to me, but I'm more excited, and it's ultimately on this list just because of the gameplay demos that they've put out. And there have been a lot where I think the series does a good job of making zombies be scary and actually threatening to your life. And there are sections that have reminded me of the same reason I really loved The Last of Us, where it's like there will be times when you are pushed into an area and you're very much in danger of dying at any point, and you just kind of have to improvise your way through it. And it seems like a lot of the demos have shown degrees of that, where it's like, okay, I have to, I'm going to grab this weapon and that's going to get me out of this immediate jam, but then I have this entire horde chasing me, and so I'm going to climb up here and jump over here. And I like that. I think they have always done a good job of making it feel like a dangerous world and a very distinct sense of place, and I'm hoping that this one does it as well.
They don't have a release date yet, do they?
No, I don't think so.
So spring 2020 seems like some of the last messaging. Is there any chance you think that they'd push it back to be a next-gen launch?
Maybe.
I mean, there's such a tech powerhouse there. You think they'd be interested?
I mean, that's the question with any game that's not confirmed that doesn't have a confirmed release date at this point, right?
Yeah, 100%. Kyle Hilliard, number 5.
Number 5, it's Little Nightmares 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is like maybe an odd pick, but like I really liked that first game a lot, and I thought it was pretty like standalone, right? Like it ends in such a way that I didn't really feel like I wanted a sequel. Right. But when they announced it, I was like, well, that world is really, really strange that they established, of just like you being this small child traveling through this boat of like these carnivores, of these like giant weird creatures. What? It's a really weird
I just remember
game.
being a little thing in a shed. But it goes places beyond that.
Oh, yeah. No,
okay.
it's really cool. And then, like, when it came out on Switch, I ended up playing it again and stuff. So, like, I really want to see where that goes next. Like, I feel like that game kind of... I mean, it got a sequel, so it must have done pretty well.
Yeah.
And it's, like, it's kind of this, like, surprise little hit. And it was... I didn't expect a sequel, but it was one of those things that when they announced it, like, my mind lit up. And I was kind of like, you know what? I do want to revisit that world because it was really cool. So, yeah. Little Nightmares 2.
Tarsier Studios?
Yeah.
They have a weird history.
Oh, yeah. You pull it up right now. Little Big Planet stuff. And,
it's just like, they came from Little Big Planet. They're obsessed with little things and little toys.
Yeah.
And then they just took a turn for the dark.
And Little Nightmares was announced, like, it was in development for a long time, and it had a different name. I think it was called, like, Hunger when it was initially announced, which is actually more, makes more sense in the context of the game when you play it. But Little Nightmares is more intriguing, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My number 5, Like a Dragon.
Oh yeah.
I got you, big boy.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Is it because the RPG combat is like
100%.
the one barrier you needed to cross to get you into the series?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Yeah, we're just the brawler combat in general. It's like, it's fine.
And it is specifically inspired by Dragon Quest, which is
Yes,
a series
the main
that you
character,
like, right?
Yeah.
Which is a weird, like, it's not a Sega franchise, right? Like,
No.
that's Square. So
Yeah.
No, well, I just wanted, like, did they have any sort of association with the Dragon Quest series? And no, it's just weird for them to. Like for them to publicly declare, oh, he's really into
say
it.
what something's
yeah,
inspired
versus
by.
like like what's Sega's RPG like Star Ocean? Is that
Wait,
them?
no. That was Enix, so that's also Square at this
so
point.
like I guess they wanted to have an RPG, but Sega
Skies
doesn't
of
have,
Arcadia.
Yeah, it's really into Skies of Arcadia.
Yeah, that is weird.
Number 4, Serial.
My number 4 is Cyberpunk, which
There it is.
which might be surprising for how low it is, but like I think that. So I'm as someone who has the Witcher 3 as one of their like best games of the decade. They're doing a lot here that I think is interesting, but may not be for me specifically. So this feels a lot more like it's building on the structures of Deus Ex more than it's building on like anything The Witcher did.
Yeah.
And like I like immersive civs. Like Dishonored is a game that I really like, but this feels like it's more going to be a little bit more methodical and less about stealth and more about like, okay, my biggest fear for the game is for a lot of the more interesting situations to be like, oh, this door is locked. Well, let me go find the grate or like find the way to hack the door or like talk to someone. Like that is less interesting to me personally, and I know that a lot of people will get a huge kick out of it. And I'm interested to see like the different branches and stuff of the like how you can talk to people out of situations and things like that. But this feels like I'm less interested in this at face value than I was something like The Witcher. So like, but even with that, I like how they're really good at building out these worlds, and they're kind of claim that the city will be smaller but more dense with characters and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that I'm really into, and the ways you can kind of build your character with different stats, obviously that's going to be cool. But the ways that those are going to be in service to like an immersive sim versus an RPG, I think is less interesting for me personally.
Yeah. It's always that weird thing. Like, are there specifics about the gameplay that have you more excited? Or is it just, hey, it's Cyberpunk's next game from the team that made The Witcher 3? Is that about the level you're riding at?
That to me is the thing that I'm writing most on.
Yeah.
But like,
do you think there's going to be like a weird disconnect when that game finally comes out of people being like, oh, it's just a really, really well done Deus Ex?
Wait, are you talking about like Witcher fans being?
I think so. Of like Crash Down to Reality of like, oh, it turns out it's a game. It looks like it's going to be incredibly well done, but still at the same point, like,
but it's different
I was expecting...
from The Witcher, right? It's going to be a lot different. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I think the people who like are excited about that game are like really into it and know what to expect.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
What I mean? I don't think there's going to be a lot of people like searching the store online and being like, oh, for the people that made The Witcher, okay, I'll check that out.
Well, I think a lot of it is built on like this is the next game from those guys. I don't think it's specific to like, oh, they're making a huge like the CD Projekt Red people are making a Cyberpunk game, right? Because it's like there have been a lot of Cyberpunk games over the last few years, but none of them have this level of hype. I think them being involved with it is like why it's like a lot of people's biggest anticipated title.
I'm intimidated by it, honestly. Like it's going into it. Like I'm excited to try it, but like I'm also nervous about it because if it's as big as I expect it to be, it's like you better get ready to commit. And like I don't know if I'm ready to do that.
Yeah, and I'm personally more interested in like how they're gonna explore different outcomes and how you can talk to people and like what kinds of stories is interested in telling in the cyberpunk world. Because one of my favorite things about The Witcher was that it felt like a constant subversion of fantasy tropes, and I haven't seen that from Cyberpunk so far. It feels more like it's like totally embracing the idea of like cyberpunk is cool and like let's have a dystopian future where it's like like the people with better insurance get access to healthcare to emergency ambulances and stuff faster. But I'm hoping they kind of like introduce interesting twists to that versus like isn't our world dystopic, which is like a thing that Cyberpunk very naturally does. And like just they're like whenever they lean into in their demos in like, oh, here's this cool gun that you can use and here's like this way you can hack this guy and shoot them. Like I'm not interested in like that super specifically.
What about like the hacking in general? It's like, oh, you can hack this robot to like the boxing robot to murder the man or like any of that stuff, like the alternate routes.
That stuff is fun, but it doesn't feel like I've seen this before. Like
you want the storytelling.
Yeah, like I want to see how because that's I feel like is going to be my if I do fall in love with this game, it's going to be because of that. It's not going to be because like, oh, like instead of me killing him personally, I killed this boss by using the turret. Like that's a cool trick, but it you've seen it you've seen it in like stuff like this X before.
Yeah.
So
all right, make your prediction. Will Keanu Reeves be nominated for best performance in a video game
by Human Mill
for the Game Awards next year?
Absolutely.
Just to try and get him there.
Not in the same year as Last of Us 2 coming out, right? I mean,
I think
there's the full cast.
they
of
can
Last of Us
nominate multiple people, Kyle.
I guess that's true.
That's how nominations work.
I am very curious about his role in that game.
Yeah, is it going to be totally phoned in or?
I don't think it's going to be phoned in. I think it's probably going to be bigger than people expect.
Yeah.
Like based on those demos and where they're leading
they've
it.
said that he's like a main character who's with you.
He's like one of 3 companion characters you can choose. Like he could optionally not be.
Wait, really?
I'm sorry
think
for
so.
the people who are
I think they
not
have
Keanu
different-
Reeves.
Yeah, like that was kind of my
playwright's
concern is that like I'm pretty sure you can pick other faction leaders to like side with.
Oh, maybe one of the
But-
other guys is Tom Hanks.
But isn't he like living in your head?
Yeah, but I'm like those 2 things are kind of conflicting in my brain because I know at some point I heard that you can choose
He's got him in
3
his
different.
brain right now.
Yeah.
Classic problem.
Hey, Keanu.
There we go.
Cyberpunk was my number 1, so Serial just crapped all over
Spoiler.
that.
Well, jump in.
Yeah.
Hey,
No,
jump
You're
in.
supposed to talk about it now, share your excitement. Then when we wrap around to number 1, then you reveal it and we throw confetti in the air.
Oh, okay. That's how it works. I guess I am excited for all the reasons that Serial said at the beginning of his that this game isn't for him. I think those are the things that make it for me. I am more interested in a first-person action simulation kind of game than I ever was with The Witcher. And the modern or future setting to me is also more interesting than medieval fantasy, and there certainly have been a lot of cyberpunk games like that is such an old trope at this point, but it seems like they are going back to a historical origin of it that I don't actually know that much about. You know?
So you just want to learn more about the specific cyberpunk world.
And it seems like they're willing to get weird with concept like sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so getting weird with interesting sci-fi concepts is also a big draw for me.
And I will say they have shown a little bit of like, one of the demos had them in was basically like, this was supposed to be like a number of condos for rich people, but they all kind of abandoned it. So it's like this hollowed out, like huge building.
Yeah.
And so I like those, like that is like the thing that I'm looking forward to most is like I want to see a ton of that. Right. And I'm curious to see like, because the city is smaller, how many more stories are they going to have like that, and how many more like opportunities to tell stories that way are they going to have?
Let's see. Let's try and predict the dings against Cyberpunk 2077 on the GameSpot review system. What are the minus? Do you think like the driving people aren't going to be crazy about?
I think there's issues with like even at the E3 demo you're talking about, like the way minorities are represented and things like that. Like I think that kind of stuff.
Some of that dialogue was a little bit like, okay.
Yeah. So I think the sort of social, sort of cultural element of the game, we'll see how that plays out,
Sure.
Yeah. As far as like mechanically, maybe the shooting won't be like when, it's hard to compare like games that aren't first-person shooters first to stuff like Call of Duty and Destiny.
Right. Yeah, could be. Jeff, number 4?
Number 4, well, okay, now I can ruin everything for you guys,
Please.
is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
There it is. Number 4. That's very interesting for you.
Yeah, and part of that is because I have never played it before. And so, like...
Same here. Well, actually, I probably played a little bit more than you, but go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, because I've literally played
Kyle, would you
none
like
of
to talk about this game?
Sorry, I should have just let you talk.
And so I think the more action-oriented approach to it is also a plus for me, which it seems very interesting in that, like, it's still basically turn-based stuff. You have, like, meters filling up and stuff, but it seems like they just added, like, basic attacks that you can do, but they don't actually do that much damage, but it just kind of gives you something that you can do
Run around,
while you
look
know
cool.
it's, like, recharging and things. But... That's like perfect for me.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to play it yet?
No,
Anyone?
I haven't.
It's a dream come true. I want them to release that demo so desperately because playing that locked it into place for me where it's like, I think it's the best I've felt about the future of Final Fantasy since like before the release of Final Fantasy IX. Like I am at that level of hype of like, I think they're doing it. Like based on how well that demo played,
It's
I
almost
think
like it's on your
happening.
list.
That's right.
And it seems like this is the vision of the game that fans of that game have had in their head this whole time. Like kind of like I get to play not only am I, because if I went back and played the original Final Fantasy VII, I wouldn't have fun with it, and it would probably be like, oh, look how lame all this stuff looks, and look how bad the performances are and stuff.
I think
like
those
that.
models look
There's
bad.
no performances.
You hang on. You think the models look bad?
No, in the original, they I don't think they did like even the chibi approach to it well. Like I think there have been better chibi games.
I love the look of it. It's just pure nostalgia, but I
Yes,
love what a mess
and that is
7
exactly what I'm saying. Is I'm going
but
into
I
it
still
without
would
any
argue
nostalgia.
You would have a good time if you enjoy RPGs at any level. If you went back and played the original, you would not be miserable. You would have a good time going
maybe,
through that game.
Even so, but
No, not maybe, Jeff.
fine.
You
yes,
would not be
I
miserable,
would,
Jeff.
but
Pause. Let's have Jeff play the game right now.
It wouldn't live up to the hype and the memories and nostalgia that everyone has, and it feels like I am getting a chance to play more what the vision is that people have going into it. Like I get to play the best possible version. And the thing that hopefully, yes. And the thing that really puts it on this list is it's kind of like stepping in a time machine and going back, because I now get to have that experience while everyone else is having it. Because the other thing about going back and playing it now is I'd be experiencing all these things for the first time, and like no one else would give a shit. Because it's so many years old that I'd be like, hey, remember when this happened in Final Fantasy VII, and no one would care.
I would care.
But but now that we are going into it, and it's kind of an alternate version, like things may be changing and stuff, I can experience all those things for the first time and actually be part of the conversation as the entire industry is having it.
Without spoiling anything here and now, like how much do you know about the storyline to Final Fantasy VII?
That in it.
Oh, what are you doing?
He didn't say which one.
all right.
Yeah,
I know very little.
I'm excited too because like
any female character as he's playing the game. Okay.
You can bleep that out if that's
I think
a spoiler.
I might.
The reason I stumbled earlier was because the thing about me is I have tried to start Final Fantasy VII multiple times throughout my life. Like even on a PlayStation disc, I think I got halfway through disc 1 when it came out on Vita. Like I played it on my Vita. I played it like even in the last couple of years on like PS4, but I can never make that much headway into it. And I think because the combat looks so interesting, it looks like because I like Final Fantasy 15's combat. I don't think you do, but I think it's like the next step for that, where it's like Final Fantasy 15 was trying to be action, but still felt sort of hampered by trying to live in this turn-based world, where Final Fantasy 7 is like stepping out of that a little bit, where it's still
stepping away from turn-based. You're saying?
No, I'm saying like it's finding the middle ground better. Where Final Fantasy 15 struggled.
Yeah,
but I liked Final Fantasy 15's combat. I enjoyed it. So I think this will be the time that I finally see like Final Fantasy 7 through.
Yeah,
which is exciting.
It'll be my first time with it too. Like I played it for an hour. Like I played the PC version for an hour at like a cousin's house one time, and
so you get it.
Yeah, so I had the Final Fantasy 7 experience, but like this will be my first time. Like my biggest concern with it is the scope of it. I think that I think I'd be more because I don't think anyone's criticism of Final Fantasy 7 was that it was too short, right? Like I don't.
No, it's a good length for the base game for
sure.
So
like. It feels like them trying to like make it appeal to fans, where it's like, hey, every aspect of this game, we're gonna have like a much more thorough version of that story. Yeah. And I'm curious to see like when that is good and when that is just gonna lead to like, oh, I guess I wanted to know more, but maybe not this much more. And the fact that they're expanding it out to however many games, I'm curious to see how that'll affect like the overall story. If it'll just feel like this long, very like. Saga versus people who already know the entire story, just learning more about like, okay, here's this aspect that may not be interesting on its own, but if someone who understands the full story wants to know more about it, like this is interesting, but is it going to be interesting to someone who has not approached this world before?
And we should point out that there are some data mined leaks and stuff about the remake out the internet. I haven't looked at that stuff, so we're not spoiling anything that hasn't been released from Square or anything like that. But I mean, if this game is 20 hours long and just focusing on Midgar, which is what I have prepped in my mind, it's like that would be awesome, right? But in terms of like are they going to get too much into the drama of Avalanche as a team, stuff like that? Like
here's 4 hours on Red 13 or something.
Well, that would be a dream come true because he needs more time to shine. But I think that ties into my main concern with 7, even though it is my number 1 by a mile, is like I worry about the storytelling. I've had so little faith in Square for the last 15 years, just on a basic storytelling level. It's sad to say, right? And so I worry about that. Even like, watching Advent Children, stuff like that, seeing my beloved Final Fantasy 7 characters, and I realize I'm sounding like somebody else for saying my beloved Final Fantasy 7 characters, but seeing those characters talk, like it's always a little bit jarring. And it's just like those performances, I worry they're going to take me out of it. I worry some of the writing might be a little bit ham-fisted. And overall, I'm worried about them just hitting you over the head with Sephiroth so early, which it looks like they're doing. Like they released screenshots where it's like, oh, it's Sephiroth in Shinra Tower very early on. Even in the demo, like there's a flash of like a feather by the Mako reactor and stuff. And so I worry about them just saying, you like Sephiroth? Here's all the Sephiroth you can handle.
And
Whereas
Sephiroth is a bird? Is that why the feather
he's
is
a bird.
relevant?
That's
Oh,
right.
wow.
He's the little one-winged bird.
There's also like the George R. R. Martin trepidation of like, when is this actually going to end? You know, that's one of the things that
Right.
had me deliberating where I should put it on my list of that, like, okay, what, I may be getting like a third of the story now?
Yeah.
And how long is it going to take for the next
I think it's going to
portion
take a
of it?
long time.
Is this going to be a
And-
Kentucky Route Zero situation where it's like, oh yeah, play it in 10 years, and that's when I should have played it, not
I
now.
honestly think it is, especially if you think about just Midgar. They can probably reuse some art designs overall if this first game is just Midgar. But then, like the rest of the game, it's just pure variety, traveling the world. Like, I think just art alone, they're going to get bogged down creating these next installments. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
between
Well, I mean,
those things.
Nomura is known as a closer, so like.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm switching to Like a Dragon now.
Okay, yeah. Smart.
The other you mentioned George R. R. Martin. At least with this, like, if you get fed up waiting, like you can go find out what happens.
I guess.
you know?
Yeah. No, that's true.
That is true.
You play a 20-hour version of the first hour, and then you play just Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be so weird if they like redirect you at the end of the game. Just find out what happens next. Buy this on the
Just
PlayStation
gives you
4
the link.
store.
While you're
Yeah.
waiting.
I forgot that Nomura is co-directing this game. I think at first they announced he was directing, then they brought on co-directors and stuff. And so one of them, because I went way too deep into this stuff, is Motomu Toriyama, who's the co-director, and he started at Square working on Final Fantasy VII, doing a lot of the writing, and then he was the lead designer for the submarine section in Final Fantasy VII, which ain't great, but we won't hold that against him.
Watch that part be like blown out and be amazing now.
Good-
It's like
yeah.
this is my baby. I'm fixing it.
Final Fantasy VII Part 2, The Submarine.
That'd be so sweet. But then he also directed like 10-2, Lightning Returns, stuff like that. But then the fascinating one is Nojima, who's the writer. He's like the scenario designer for Final Fantasy VII, a lot of the early Final Fantasies, like 7, 8, 9 in particular, which I guess we can call the early Final Fantasies at this point. But he left.
Mid-range, I guess.
Yeah, but he left Square in 2008, and now he's just doing like freelance stuff. So he came back in and wrote for like Mobius Final Fantasy, that mobile game and stuff. But he's coming on as the lead writer then for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I think is really interesting. And so looking into Nojima's history a little bit, I forgot that he helped create the Subspace Emissary mode for Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
That's right. Yeah.
So I looked at an old Iwata Ask, because everything good in the universe and on the internet eventually leads back to Iwata Ask. And here's Sakurai talking about it. He said, at that point, I decided to ask Nojima-san to help us since he had composed the scenarios for titles like Final Fantasy VII. The first storyline he came up with, however, wasn't exactly what I was looking for. It went something like this, quote, some of the characters are on a bus on the way to the stadium.
I like it already.
Samus is there. Donkey Kong is there. And Snake is watching the bus from afar. He goes, it was like that. I had envisioned a more serious tone for the story, something with some misfortune, like a single character escaping the total annihilation of his squadron and then fighting back while rounding up his allies. Ultimately, together, we worked together and successfully organized our ideas of the storyline for Subspace Emissary.
So, Serial, as a professional Smash Brothers fan fiction writer,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
your feedback on
About Nojima's bus storyline.
So I think that in that scenario, I think Samus and Snake are probably more equipped to work together than Donkey Kong. And so, like, yeah.
And by
that's-
work together, you mean work together.
Work
He
together.
must have-
That's right.
He must have watched that. You remember that old Pokemon commercial where all the Pokemon get on the bus?
That was his research for Smash. He just watched his old Pokemon
And then he just showed
commercials.
me the original ad for Super Smash Bros. 64, where they're all just kind of in suits and beating each other
Yeah,
up.
he said all of Subspace, the only music track should be the Turtles So Happy Together. It's a weird call. But something with Final Fantasy VII and the remake is,
Is that why it's called Subspace Emissary? Because he's the submarine guy?
Oh, no, that was a different guy. That's the
Oh,
director
okay.
that was the sub guy.
Sorry,
He's
I
the sub
retract that
subs.
joke. Sorry.
It's a good attempt, though. But I don't think I've paid enough attention to what Square has released that has shown that they are changing things. Obviously, it's like, okay, Sephiroth more in the beginning, stuff like that. Because I guess they kind of have to if it's all Midgar and they want Sephiroth in that first game. But, like, they've shown that character that's a new soldier rebel, and his name is Roach. And he's the one
new character?
He's a new character, yeah. So their official description is Soldier Rebel Roach is always followed by the squeal of tires and the smell of burnt rubber. So he's like some other goon working for President Shinra that is on a motorcycle and it's like attacking you on the motorcycle, but that's going to be a weird detail. It's like, oh, here's just a new character named Roach that I have to get used to in Final Fantasy VII. Or just weird stuff like in some of the trailers, they have like these weird dark spirits kind of like flying around Tifa's bar. They've shown it in a couple trailers and it's just this bizarre concept of like, what could this possibly be? I don't really understand unless you just say some general Sephiroth freaky magic going on, but I don't know what that's going to be. So I think it's going to be more different than people expect.
Do you think there's going to be a lot of stuff in this game that was originally cut from 7? Have they mentioned that at all?
No, they haven't.
Like, we always wanted there to be spirits at Tifa's bar, but we just couldn't render them.
We can only actually make the spirits in the bottle.
Yeah, will they be adding fedoras to a number of characters? Or
what is that a reference to?
Resident Evil.
Oh,
Fedora was cut, in Resident Evil 2, but then they added it back for the remake.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. They haven't really said too much. I haven't even heard stories about what was cut, what didn't make the cut for Final Fantasy VII to begin with, So they could be pulling from that because they have Nojima on doing their storyline. I wouldn't be surprised.
What do you think the odds are that the three of us will like it more than you do?
Oh, yeah.
Just because we're going in with no expectations whatsoever. It's kind of like the Star Wars thing of like you had this very distinct sense of what you think this Final Fantasy VII should be, and now they're messing with it, whereas we may just
I think I do have a weird Star Wars sense as well with this of just I want to see it. I'm not going to be too pissy about the whole thing if they change things. Like it can't do damage, I don't think, to my nostalgia. I've already had so much Final Fantasy VII nonsense released that hasn't done any damage. So even if it's a complete disaster, which I don't think it will be, it couldn't hurt it.
It will be hard for you though to not see things and be like, oh, that's new, that's changed.
For sure.
Where for us, it'll be like, oh, Roach, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
But I think it'll just like heighten the experience for me. I would be shocked if at the end of the year, this game wasn't higher up on my list compared to your guys'
Unless
list.
they changed something that you actually liked about the original, though. Would that like totally screw with you?
If, like we talked about last week, Red 13 is now a man who farts a lot, yes, I would hate that. Yeah.
Whereas I would love it. So
that's right. That's right. I still think the star of that show, no matter what, is going to be that soundtrack. Like the glimpses of the soundtrack they've released so far is just stunning. So I can't wait just to hear that.
All right, well, that was my number 4. So
great number 4, man. Kyle Hilliard, number 4.
Biomutant.
There we go.
Which is one that like you hear about in these like bursts and then they kind of go underground for a while. But like I just like the base concept of like playing as this anthropomorphic animal in this like maybe cyberpunky kind of like weird futuristic world. It's almost like a Brian Jacks book or something, but sci-fi kind of like
Brian Jacques?
Jacques?
I think it's Jacques.
Jacques?
Yeah, the Red Wall stuff?
Yeah. Like it's almost like that kind of approach, and like I like that it's open world, and we talked recently about how I like games where you can expand your like abilities, like your platforming abilities and stuff like that. And it sounds like that's kind of the sort of upgrade system for that game is like you're expanding like what you can do in like an action sense.
Yeah.
And it just has a great look to it. Like I want to see what that game is and what it's about. Like it's one of those things where like if you laid out all these 2020 games out in front of me, and if I could just pick one to play, I'd be like, I am so curious what Biomutant is because like there's not much history to the developer really, and
they came from the team that made Just Cause and stuff.
But like they're generally new. Like it's a new team, isn't it? Or am I mistaken about that? Okay, so that's why I'm excited for Biomutant because I'm just very curious about what that game is going to be. And
for sure,
I think it just looks cool.
I'm curious what a THQ Nordic budget would do to that ambitious open world design because it seems like a game that could balloon in a big way. So I'm curious how they can rein it in for 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if it's like a smaller world that's condensed as long as it's interesting.
That's also one of those games where it seems like anyone who actually sees it or goes to a demo of it or whatever is much hotter on it than kind of the basic general interest in that game. Like I know Jeff Cork has been talking about that game for years, it seems, because they keep showing it at Gamescom.
When we were at Game Informer, it was one that we would always try to be like, we should look into getting this on the cover. Not that we had a lot of control over that necessarily. Like that was like an Andy game,
right?
But like that was one that like I was always like, I would love to see that on the cover. I would like a deep dive on that game.
Right, the deepest dive, some would say.
Yeah,
good call. When's
that one come out?
I think it's just 2020 in general at this point.
Yeah, it smells vague.
Could come out.
Are we only
day.
doing confirmed games, by the way?
What's that?
The games that we know for sure are coming out this year.
You can fudge it if you need to.
I mean, Biomutant
games that you think are going to come out in 2020, right? Mine, I'm pretty confident is coming out in 2020, even though last year, I think, on the Game Informer Show podcast, I said it's one of my most anticipated games for 2019, but it's Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Oh, okay.
Scheduled for March 20th right now on the Switch. I'm hungry for that community. I'm hungry to be on Twitter when Animal Crossing comes out and everyone's going to be so positive and sharing little things. There were like flavors of it with Pocket Camp. I didn't play that crap. I'm saving all of my gusto for a new official Animal Crossing. And it's been so long since New Leaf. I think people are just going to be awash in good vibes.
Yeah, it will be fun to just, because I'm not a big Animal Crossing guy, but it is, you're right, like looking at Twitter when that game comes out, it's going to be a lot of screenshots of cute animals saying funny things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's like, yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
You know?
And like the entire hook with this one obviously is, pulling from Minecraft. They're going to have crafting in it. And you're going to like this island to like build it out. It's an unexplored island. I think that's realistically going to be the first couple hours of the game, and the rest of the game is just going to feel like an old Animal Crossing. And I'm totally fine with that. I'm ready for just that experience. I think it's going to sell bananas on the Switch. I think everybody's going to be playing Animal Crossing in March.
I think that's one that sales-wise, like, we will be sort of impressed. You know what I mean? Because, like, the Switch just has this insane install base, and that's, like, a lot of people bought a Switch to play Animal Crossing in advance.
Yeah,
and so,
for sure. And even though I say I'm excited for the community, I was thinking about it because the big thing with this one is like, 8 players can play together. You can play, 4 locally and stuff. But it's like, I don't think I want to play with anybody. Like, are you excited about playing with anybody else?
I'm not excited about playing the game
well,
at
you're
all,
wrong.
really. But I'm with you. Like, I would just kind of want to be on that island by myself and explore myself and meet my own characters. And I don't want you running circles around me.
Right.
You know?
Maybe I'll have like one gimmicky night where I'll check out somebody else's town, but I feel like, they can send me a screenshot or I'll look at a stream. Like, I'll see other towns. It's less mystical than it was back on the GameCube, right? Of like, taking the train to this other town. It's such a huge deal. But yeah, looking forward to it so much. Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Are you still a human in that game? Or can you pick, can you be an
You can
animal?
be a human, yeah.
But can you be an animal?
No.
You've never been able to be an animal.
The whole point is that you're crossing paths with the animals as the lone human. Actually, that's a good question. I don't know. Do they call you out in Animal Crossing as being different?
Hey, wait a second.
I
don't know. That's a good
It's been
question.
a
I don't
while.
think so.
Please write in if there's any hint of like them.
I think they just
What's
treat
with
you
this
as another
freak?
animal, you know? Because
Yeah.
everyone's an individual animal.
I mean,
so.
technically we are.
Technically
kind of
we are.
You and me
animals.
ain't nothing but men.
That was the original subtitle for Animal Crossing.
The GameCube version that came out in America was not the first Animal Crossing, right? Or was it an upgraded?
Well, it started on the 64DD in Japan.
Yeah. And the one that the GameCube Animal Crossing is not that game.
I think
right?
it was a version of that game.
Okay.
As
That's
far
what
as
I
I
was wondering. I was
understand
like, did they miss some opportunity to like localizing those games must just be hell. But like, but like putting that N64 game on the Wii U or something like that, you know?
Oh, interesting. No, I think it'd basically be the first one. I think, as far as I know, they're pretty close. Serial number 3.
My number 3 is Guilty Gear Strive.
There we go, Serial.
Oh, they got a normal name this time around.
Well, I mean, they couldn't go any further than 3X's, right? Like 4X. That's a strategy game at that point. So yeah, they're doing a lot of interesting things with the game. Obviously, like they're building on the like their wonderful like Unreal Engine meets cell shading technology. So like there's a lot more animation interpolation, if you know what that is. It's basically like rather than animating individual frames and kind of making it look like a cartoon, they were leaning a little bit more into like the models actually flowing like they're 3D models a little bit, but they're mixing that with the cartoon style. So there's like moments where, you know, if you get like a counter hit, like the camera pans and there's like a lot smoother action basically. So it looks a lot better than Xrd, which I didn't think was possible, but like they're doing that, and they're also kind of taking a step back and kind of rebuilding the entire engine. Basically, they're saying, okay, what works from Xrd and, you know, Guilty Gear as a series, and they're kind of like rebuilding the game from scratch and saying like, okay, let's examine all these concepts that have become like very standard in Guilty Gear, and let's kind of figure out if they still work and if we still want to use them.
Do you think? I think Guilty Gear is always amazing to look at, but it's very intimidating on a couple fronts, because any fighting game is intimidating to get into in some respect. But then also, like, I'm never quite sure which is just like an iteration and when it's a good jumping in point. And this is like, this one, what's it called again?
Strive.
Strive?
Yeah.
This is like whole new entry, the best jumping on point in a while.
I would say so, yeah. Like, I think that, I mean, even Xrd was that when they came back out, but like, obviously they always add new iterations and they always, you know, make the game more complex. And the thing, like, they're kind of pitching it less as like, okay, this is for new players or whatever, and more is like, we're just kind of, we want we want to change so much that it doesn't matter whether you're new or a veteran. Like everyone just has that even playing ground. And I think in the fighting game community, like a lot of people have become really wary about that stuff of like, oh, you're just kind of simplifying it and you're dumbing it down for like a general audience. But I think the case has always been that like no matter how simple you start, like players will always find these little like tweaks and ways to play the game that always makes it a more technical game in the long run. So I think just thinking about it as like just jump on now because like they're gonna do a lot better job of introducing you to those concepts versus them having fewer concepts to deal with. I think it's cool. I think a lot of the redesigns for a lot of the characters are interesting. The way that like they're kind of focusing on like shorter combos that do more damage and kind of focusing on that aspect, I think I'm really excited about, and I'm curious to see like because all like even Fighters and Grand Blue, which is also this year, have used that same look. But then like this is like the series that they really care about. Like this is kind of their Mortal Kombat versus like Injustice or something like that. Yeah. Where they say like this is us basically. Like this is the core of what we want to do, and everything we do will be based on this kind of center going forward. Right. So like I'm excited, and like as someone who came onto Xrd pretty late in its life cycle and kind of only very recently got to the point where it's like, oh, I think Guilty Gear is cool versus like, I don't know, it's another anime fighter. I'm more of a Street Fighter person, so being on the ground floor with this one, I think is going to be exciting for me personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential for that audience to kind of balloon just from Dragon Ball goodwill. Right. You know what I mean? From just being able to say like, hey, those people that brought you Fighters, like this is their pillar.
Right, like, like this is the next thing from the Dragon Ball people. Whereas Grand Blue is going to be like, well, if you like that series and want another fighting game, like you can do that. But like for people who are hardcore into Dragon Ball, like and at this point,
if you were impressed by Dragon Ball, you're really going to be impressed by this.
Yeah, like this is like more technical than that even.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Well, that's why Birthday's the New Beginning blew up because they're like, Arc System Works made this. Come on,
they just published it, right?
No, they developed it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As far as I understand, Guilty Gear Strive. The release window is late 2020.
Yeah, because Grand Blue's earlier in the year, and then Guilty Gear. I think it's reasonable that game will probably get delayed, but I could see it'd be an interesting launch title.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I thought, is Grand Blue like a larger franchise that also has RPGs?
Because it's a mobile thing, yeah.
And then they're doing a fighting game as well.
Yeah, so like Grand Blue is like a mobile game in Japan. Yeah, it's kind of
mobile
sort
RPG,
of
right?
Yeah, and then they're also making it like a console RPG. I don't remember what the name of that is.
Grand Blue Fantasy, I think.
Yeah,
and so
which
that was
people are excited about. Right?
Platinum was developing it, and then there's a weird like shift over. They're like, and you take it, and so it seems like maybe it wasn't going well, or it's just like a unusual handoff near the end of development.
But that one's more about like, hey, your individual skills has cooldowns, but if you want to do the actual motion, it's a little bit more powerful. But I hope they fix the netcode. I think like netcode has kind of been like the next thing that people want fixed because like rollback netcode is seen as kind of the standard, and a lot of Japanese developers especially aren't taking to it because I think that they maybe do a lot of their testing in Japan where the servers are a lot better, and so like rollback is a lot better for most other situations, which is interesting because like there was a whole thing with Street Fighter V where like that game uses rollback netcode, but people don't like the way it's implemented. It's kind of spotty. But I guess this modder was looking at the code and was like, oh, I think there's like a weird error. And like in 2 days, he fixed the netcode basically so that if you patch it with his patch, the netcode is like pristine in a way that it has never been for Street Fighter, but only against people who have that patch. So it's this weird bisecting of like.
So they need to take that patch and implement it across the board.
Right. So it's like whether is Capcom going to do that is kind of like the larger question because it's like it's this fan built thing. They don't know. Like would we pay them at that point? Like is this a legal thing they have to get into? But it's frustrating because like the fact that some random guy was able to do it in 2 days kind of speaks to like, well, they leave it in on purpose, or like what are they doing here? Why wasn't this fixed earlier?
Yeah,
but like so going forward with like stuff like even Arcs is like I still think their lobby system kind of sucks, where you have to go into a virtual like arcade.
Is
basically.
It all like the Dragon Ball FighterZ thing?
So there's not a lot of like direct like I just want a game. I just want to make a lobby with my friends and play that. So I hope they don't do that this time around. I hope they actually have good netcode. But I'm excited to just play that game. On a basic level.
Definitely. Jeff Argifava, number 3.
Yeah, number 3. I think it's coming out in 2020.
Oh, here we go.
In case I missed anything, but it would be Watch Dogs Legion.
There it is. So it's an ambiguous window where Ubisoft said it was delayed, but in this fiscal year, so it's going to come out between April and March of next year. So most likely this year, right?
Close enough.
Probably launch.
We're going to comp it. Yeah. And the reason that I'm excited, I I still am like one of the outspoken people who like the first Watch Dogs, even though that game gets dumped on all the time.
People just dump on Aiden, right?
Yeah,
the main character.
And I did too. I totally hated him, and I said so in my review. What?
The first entry in that game sowed a lot of bad seeds for that series that I don't think it's maybe fully recovered. I think Watch Dogs 2 did a lot of good for that series.
Yeah, which then everyone loved Watch Dogs 2, and it's like core gameplay is still very similar.
But they've been selling great no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's a 3, so.
But yeah,
there isn't actually.
Wow.
The reason that I like it so much though is because it's all systems driven this time, and it gets into Molden for Holden territory with me.
I like that's become like a phrase now.
Yeah, which is that they have created it so that you can recruit anyone, and those characters kind of make up your crew, and then they are the ones who are in all like the story kind of just dynamically revolves around them as a group, but then as you're playing, if one of your characters dies, there's a permadeath angle to it, and
I'm so excited.
that is legit one of my like fantasy dream games, like those kind of concepts in them. That's why I was always so super interested in State of Decay, which had its own problems that kind of dropped it down a notch, but for Ubisoft to do that in one of their open world games, which they are still very good at making, has me very excited.
For sure, and especially with Clint Hawking at the helm. I love that he's swinging big, going back to old Splinter Cell days, stuff like that. He's been kind of Far Cry 2. He's been rambling around the industry, and now he's coming home, and I love that.
He's willing to take those kind of, like crazy, like when they started announcing this stuff, it's like, this is insane. Like, why would Ubisoft take this kind of risk? It's the kind of risks we want them to take, but they're actually doing it for once.
The thing that bums me out is that apparently you can't recruit anybody out of the gate. That it like unlocks. So by the end of the game, you can recruit absolutely anybody. But at least at E3, they were framing it as like, well, it'll be gated, so you can only unlock. I don't know what the gate is exactly, like level 1 pedestrians at this point, something like that. Which I want that thrill immediately. But what are you gonna
do? It'll be an interesting problem because like I'm super on board with the idea of it being a decentralized narrative where it's not like one guy doing everything and he's like uber competent and like able to do whatever. I like the idea of like, well, this person did this part of the thing that we needed to do to overthrow the regime and like how it's split across that way. But I have to imagine that presents like a huge like narrative problem of like how do we like write like a through line around this that isn't super muddled and has to account for people dying.
Yeah, and to be clear, this may be a complete disaster.
It'll be an interesting disaster though, like Far Cry 2.
That I want them to take those chances. And like I've never had a lot of faith in like the narratives of these games as we've talked about with some of the characters and the story elements. So not having actual specific characters, yes, could be a huge headache, but I'm glad that they're trying. And that's interesting to me, like the emergent narrative of that, even when they were just showing in the demos where it's like they have a character, going through on this mission and then all of a sudden they're just dead and they're gone. And they have other characters talking about it that like, this person's gone, and knowing that you are the cause of that, in a story setting is super interesting.
Especially, I mean, if it detracts from the power of the main story, 50%, whatever it is, totally worth it in my mind, just to have those moments of like, Rebecca!
Or you have
Rebecca moments,
and like you have a character that they've talked about, like, demo, like different scenarios and stuff where it's like you have one of those characters and they get captured, and then you have a mission where you can go free your other character that you have, like that kind of storytelling, emergent storytelling stuff is super interesting to me, which I hope it all works, but I'm excited to play it.
Sweet. Kyle, number 3.
Speaking of Ubisoft open world games, I'm really excited for Gods and Monsters.
There we go.
Which is another one of those that's like might slip into 2021, and I wouldn't be surprised.
It's in the same window as Watch Dogs, so no one really knows. But they originally announced it for February of 2020. So if they were that confident that it could come out that early,
I mean, I hope so. I just like because like the premise is kind of like, it's the setting. Not the setting, but like, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, that sort of Greek-inspired world, but like maybe leaning into the more the fantasy side of things. And like, I mean, Breath of the Wild is like front and center, right? It's like
no. Ubisoft described it very clearly. It's an open world with a painterly look. It has nothing to do with Breath of the Wild. But absolutely, I mean, that's why I think we're both barking up this tree.
Yeah, I like the idea of Ubisoft sort of playing that game and being like, who knows if I don't think it was that direct. I don't think they played Breath of the Wild and they're like, yeah, look, we can do something like this. But I'm sure like as they're developing and they looked at Breath of the Wild and like, hope it probably influenced it in some ways. But like, and it also, I'm kind of excited about it being. And I don't even know if this is fair, but it almost feels like a PG-13 kind of like window for like an open world Ubisoft game.
Yeah, for
which,
sure.
Which like I'm into. Like I'm looking forward to like an open world game where I'm not necessarily slicing around with a sword.
And so the entire framing is a little bit like.
Well, I'm sure you will have a sword, by the way. I mean like severing off limbs and blood flying everywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean those gods can be really spooky.
They're robots.
The monsters are right there. It's very frightening. But yeah, speaking to that younger age, like it's framed a little bit like Princess Bride, where apparently the entire game is going to be framed where it's Homer telling his grandkids.
I didn't know that. That's cool. Yeah.
Telling his grandkids about the crazy adventures of Phoenix, who's the main character, right? And then the kids, because Homer's using a magical lyre to tell the story, they can like see it. And so throughout the game, apparently, like the kid's narration will be popping up like, did that really happen that way, Gramps, and stuff.
I want to play Fortnite.
See and now that's like a Prince of Persia Sands of Time kind of layer that I really enjoy too. Like I love in Sands of Time when you would die, the prince would be like, oh wait, actually, hold on, that's not how that happened.
I bet they're going to be pulling from
like
that for
little
sure.
touches of that. So,
and I'm so excited about it because it's Ubisoft Quebec who made Syndicate and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And the part that blows my mind looking into it, it's the same director, this Jonathan Dumont, same director as Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So
he's been busy.
I don't know how he made that leap, but like it'll feel like, even though it's new IP, and I love seeing new IP this late in the generation.
Yeah.
But it's new IP that is so built on that exact team's experience with Assassin's Creed Odyssey that it'll feel like it'll have a little bit of that refinement of like a sequel.
Yeah.
In a way, because it's like that's the way they describe it too. It's like, oh, we loved Assassin's Creed, but we had so many ideas about a more like fantastical version of this story.
Yeah.
Let's make this beautiful looking version of that.
Yeah, I like the idea of exploring. Yeah, like the more fantasy, sort of colorful version of Greek mythology is exciting
For sure. And
yeah.
they released a surprising amount of stuff, like in this little Ubisoft done interview on their site and stuff. Apparently the island's called the Isle of the Blessed. Let's see. You play as Phoenix, a customizable hero. The gods of Olympus have fallen to Typhon, the most fearsome monster in Greek mythology, and it'll be up to you to save them. We follow the story of a forgotten hero who sets out on the quest to save the Greek gods. What's going to be weird is like you're going to be saving Greek gods. You're going to be getting new abilities along the way. Like, oh, this god will let you double jump and explore new areas. So it's
like reverse God of War. It's like
exactly. You're going and rescuing gods, but then thinking about reverse God of War. But also it's going to be a weird simpatico thing with Hades, which we played on the Great Goaty Hunt from Supergiant, of like encountering Greek gods and then they give you abilities based on their god powers.
Yeah.
But it seems like a great format for a game.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'd like to see it this year, but it's one of those ones where like if it gets pushed into 2021, if that press release comes through, I'm not gonna be super surprised.
Right. Also, I forgot that it was coming to Switch.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too.
Are you gonna play the Switch version?
Oh yeah, of course.
What if it chugs a little? Tugs a little.
I'll probably still play it on Switch.
Really?
I mean, that's what and maybe it was a mistake with Bloodstain, but that's what I did with Bloodstain because I just the ability to play on the go. I'm just like. I have so much more availability to play Switch than I do console games. Like it's like 90-10%.
Where are you playing these games, Kyle?
What do you mean?
Purely
like
when
you're on the go.
Like just sitting in my bed when my kid's watching TV and stuff like that. That kind of thing.
Door locked.
On the go.
On the go. I just walk around the house playing
on the toilet when you gotta go.
And then I bring my Switch with me in all these situations where I know I'm not going to play. Like I brought it with me today. I'm not going to play Switch while.
I mean, nothing stops. You could be
case.
playing. What if there was a whole podcast where you were just playing the Switch the whole time?
Let's do it.
I won't fire you.
Not for that anyway.
That's right. My number 3 is a game that has not been announced yet, which is shady, but the leaks have been so strong, it very much seems like it's on the way. The Call of Duty Battle Royale. Whether or not that's connected to Modern Warfare.
Standalone game?
Well, we don't know, right? If I had to guess, I would think that it's connected.
Right?
I think
it hurts to guess.
I bet it'll be released within the next couple months, and it'll be connected to Modern Warfare.
It'll be something you buy free. Oh, I mean, you don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be separate from whatever Call of Duty they're planning to release this year?
Well, it seems like it's going to be Black Ops 5 this year is what Kotaku was rumoring to say. But this is going to be a separate thing. I do think it's connected to Modern Warfare. I believe that this thing is real. But the release structure, I have no idea. So maybe they'll release it a little bit like they did with Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, right? Where it's like connected to Infinite Warfare at the time. And then back in June of that year is when they released Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered standalone. So maybe they do a similar structure where like first half of the year, within the next month and a half or something, they release it as Modern Warfare kind of DLC, and then have a standalone version that can be more adaptable moving forward.
I mean, they just need a free game on the digital storefront that just says Call of Duty Battle Royale.
100%.
Right?
That would be the smartest move. And like, I think
and then they
they
just
could
update
get away
it
with
forever.
it.
Like it becomes Call of Duty's first stab at a live service game, right?
And this is where the beauty of competition.
I guess there's the mobile game. But,
right.
yeah.
Right. But the beauty of competition comes into play because you think about like Apex Legends has set a pretty good standard for a free-to-play battle royale, and now like to hold Activision to that of like, all right, don't nickel and dime us, you SOBs, because we can go over to Apex Legends if we want. Like, I would love for EA and Activision to battle in that space, because I would love another battle royale experience with the Call of Duty mechanics. But there were those leaks that say it's going to be like a 200 player count, and those things about like if you die, you can get a chance to be revived by doing a 1v1 in a gulag and stuff. Like, they sound really fun.
All that stuff sounded really interesting. I worry about how convoluted and practical that might be for more casual players, selfishly like myself, where it's like, oh yeah, I could if I first my teammate has to figure out where the gulag is, and he has to go there and then do some.
Well, I think it's just like a
secret
revive
Easter egg.
token. I think it's a little bit like Apex Legends. I don't think it'll be too common.
I
right?
hope
Your
so.
teammates won't be that helpful, I promise. You'll just be dead most of the time.
What do you think the Black Ops 5 logo looks like? 5 stripes, 4 stripes,
right.
and like a cross through them. Is it like a V?
It's a V, right? It's going to be a V.
It's just going to be David Vonderhaar going, I don't know.
Making a V.
Yeah. I think
The YMCA logo.
in the rapid fire we did for Call of Duty Black Ops 4, I think one of the questions I asked him was, Black Ops 5 is just a stupid name, right? And he says something like, well, some people think 4 is a stupid name. So like, I would not be surprised if the official Call of Duty coming out this fall then is just Black Ops 5.
Black Op, singular.
Oh, that's very smart.
And then the S is
The 5. Yeah.
Same 5 as the PS5 logo, actually.
Nailed it.
We're haunted.
No Reeves.
They actually have ghosts in the bar in this one, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was that cut from the
That was cut from the original Battle Royale, yeah.
Number 2, Serial.
No More Heroes 3.
Wow, okay.
So for a while I've been kind of down on Suda's games in recent years, because like not because they're bad.
This
but,
is you being down on his games?
well, because like everything before Strikes Again, basically,
Okay,
was
sure.
because like he was making like decent games, but they always felt like, okay, what if we made like a hack and slash game, but it was kind of kooky, or like what
Let
if
It
we made
Die and stuff.
Yeah, so like. But they felt like fairly traditional structurally, which is the reason I fell in love with Suda games, because is like they did feel very surreal both in like concept and in execution. Like No More Heroes is a game where you're doing part-time jobs to like work your way up in a list of assassins, and it's like an open world game sort of, but not really. So like Travis Strikes Again kind of proved that he could still make that kind of very weird off-kilter game for me.
Suda Strikes Again.
Yeah, and so like seeing like the goddamn superhero trailer, like that fake out was kind of like the story it's telling itself isn't super interesting, but like the fact that he's willing, like that signals a larger shift in his approach.
I actually disagree with you on that. I think that trailer was super interesting, and the story that they were telling there like got me more interested in playing No More Heroes 3 than like anything has at this point.
Really?
Have you guys seen it? It's basically like
I mean, it was at the game awards.
like
so.
that, because I didn't fully understand what it was when I started watching it, and I was like, this is really interesting. What is this? And then it almost became a twist that it was like No More Heroes.
Right.
Like, so that actually is super exciting.
Okay.
To me. I really like that trailer a lot.
But, like to me, it feels like that trailer is like a prologue and not like going to be the story of the game.
Yeah, but it at least sets the table.
Right,
Right,
like that, and that's why
that table setting
I'm
is really
excited
cool to
more
me.
for that
Yeah.
reason, and pulling a lot of stuff, seeing that it is going to pull from Travis Strikes Again, because like there's a not so subtle allegory about like John Riccatello in Travis Strikes Again, and like that
really?
character is supposed to be an allegory for John Riccatello, and a part of Part of Strikes Again's narrative is how disappointed he was with the development of Shadows Strikes Again, or Shadows of the Damned. And
Wait,
how
did they have a character that looks like John Riccatello?
there's a character who I forget his specific name, but his name is like super similar to John Riccatello, and he's like he's a mega maniacal maniac in that game.
What?
And so like that's the character that like the goddamn superhero trailer follows, and so like because he's like when the aliens invade, he's like he's like a rich guy, and he's a CEO. So it's like I'm guessing he's the bad guy who controls all the things you're trying to kill in No More Heroes 3.
Yeah.
And so like that part of it is super interesting. Like how like the fact that it's not just like a one-off joke, and it's like I want to make this about this specific thing.
I love that.
It's super cool. And like I went back and watched like some videos of like No More Heroes, and I remember like the combat game I actually really like. And so like seeing how he's going to build on that and how that's going to work, I haven't seen any gameplay of it. The only thing that I'm not super into is like I don't think the look of it looks super interesting. Doesn't feel like it's making like it doesn't look super great to me, like the models.
Is
and
that
stuff.
just a matter of being a Switch exclusive?
Maybe, but like there are better looking Switch games, I think. But I haven't seen the game in action. But like I'm excited to see. Like I'm hoping that he takes that No More Heroes formula and kind of uses it to tell a more off-kilter story than he has been in recent years, and and that it's more that like Travis Strikes Again. So I'm excited about a studio game for like more than I have been in a long time, which is pretty cool.
And still ambiguous 2020 release date for that one.
It's like a 2020. Yeah.
Okay.
They
Awesome.
also showed Travis like skidding to a stop like Kaneda and
Yeah.
Kira. So
He does that. He makes
so I'm on board.
Yeah. Okay.
I love that in games or movies or anything when they try and attack like a real CEO, but making a villain or some dumb person in the game look like that. Like I think
like
of
the DLC in Nier.
what's that?
There's a DLC in Nier where you fight the CEO of
Oh, that's
Square.
right. But that's like very direct, and that's
Okay.
also very fun. But I love like the subtle jabs. Like even I think I remember hearing in the development of The Incredibles that like they're coming up with character designs for Syndrome, and then Redbird's like, "Yep, I love it." And then later on, I was like, "Wait a minute,
That's
Syndrome
me.
looks like me. I'm the monster that screams at everybody all the time." Yeah, I'll be damned.
I'm Jason Lee.
Number 2, Jeffem.
Yeah, number 2 is Ghosts of Tsushima.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and so, I think we've talked about this before, but I am excited for it because it's coming from Sucker Punch, and I've always liked their open world games, but I'm also excited to see them get out of the Infamous kind of churn, and do. It feels like that first Infamous game established a blueprint of of kind of their approach to open world games, and I want to see, after a decade or more, for them to see to kind of reset, the blueprint and do kind of the next iteration of what they want from an open world game. And I think for me, the setting and the historical time period is super interesting, and everything that I've seen from it, like it is just visually stunning already, and it looks like they have put a lot of time into making it authentic as well. I saw one thing that said that they went to Japan to record sounds of birds so that the birds are authentic to what Japanese birds sound like.
Or at least on this island. Yeah,
and
there's a weird story too that I heard where I think it was Shuhei Yoshida was talking about it, where that a bunch of people from PlayStation and Sucker Punch went to scout out the actual island of Tsushima. I believe that's an island, right?
Sure.
And that like the local newspaper wrote a big story about it, about like, check out all these PlayStation developers here scanning objects on Tsushima from Sucker Punch. And like apparently that story was out there and just nobody in the game press found it. Yeah,
that's funny.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that game, but it is mostly, maybe even entirely, just based on Sucker Punch, because I love Sly Cooper. I love the Infamous series more than
Robots on
most.
Wheels.
Rob, right, or Rad, or something like that. I never played it, but
That's 64 game.
yeah, and like because they've been sort of out of the loop for a while. Like they just haven't. It's after Second Son DLC came out, like I haven't heard anything from them. So like I'm just super excited to see what they have next. And like the setting is cool, but like it's really secondary to me to just see what's coming next from Sucker Punch, because in some ways I almost feel like they're like an underrated developer. Like when people talk about Naughty Dog and Insomniac, I feel like Sucker Punch should be in that circle as well. They are for me. So I want to see what they're doing next.
Well, I
and
think
everything I've seen just looks exciting.
It's largely because I feel like they've been pretty dormant this generation. Like they had Second Son, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it kind of made me want to go back. Should I play that Infamous First Light? I never played that DLC. It's a standalone thing. That might be kind of fun to play even before Ghost of Tsushima comes
if you
out.
like Infamous, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
like
like
a new
it
set
enough,
of,
yeah.
it's like a new set of powers,
Yeah.
But,
And that's the kind of thing where it's just like And I think that's one of the reasons that they're not talked about in that tier is they've just been in infamous mode for so long that people are ready for them to step out and do something kind of like Guerrilla also, with Horizon, where it's like, holy crap, like they can do so much more than they have kind of been stuck in that rut.
But what's crazy is it's such a hurdle to create new IP for a studio even as talented as Sucker Punch, right? So they've been working so long to create Ghost of Tsushima, and it's been, I guess if you include the DLC, it's been, like 6 years now to create this new IP? That's why you got to tip the cap even more to Guerrilla for creating Horizon Zero Dawn in, 3.5 years? A whole new IP? A whole new genre? Like, that's mind-boggling.
They didn't have to fly to Japan to scan rocks and record
That
birds.
is true, and hide from the paparazzi.
All their birds are fake.
And all these birds are robots.
And they were also talking about, they've hired, like, historical sword fighting experts to make sure that the sword fighting is authentic and stuff. And I think they've put a lot of emphasis so far on the story, which they've also, talked about. They've been drawing from Kurosawa films and all this kind of things. And I don't know what to expect from the story, but I like that the story is more of a focus for an open world game because that's not always the case too. And again, the setting in the historical time period and stuff like that really does it for me.
It's also exciting to have someone other than Ubisoft sort of trying to make it sort of a historically accurate game. You know what I mean? Because Ubisoft has been doing that. They're the only ones that have been doing that for like what feels like 15 years now at this point. So so very excited.
Yeah, and some of I think the latest trailer had a montage of just different locations, and I mean it's just gorgeous, and there's so much variety in there, and it's all places where it's like, man, I want to go and live there, much less play a game there. That's super exciting.
Yeah,
very curious to see what the actual gameplay loop, if we're using a very reductive term, is like.
Yeah,
because they showed the one thing of gameplay that I saw was maybe stealth based, where it's he snuck up on a guy and he stabbed him. But what is the long term? How does this game play over the long term?
Are you collecting things?
Yeah,
you know, are you fast traveling places?
Right, how much of that sword fighting are you doing? Is it here are 5 guys that you're killing, or is it every once in a while there's one opponent that you kind of that basically acts as a boss?
Yeah, so that's my number 2.
Love it. Deep Cut, my favorite Sucker Punch fact, was back at Game Informer when we visited the studio, made a video about the origins of Infamous. And in that they talked about pitching new IP in that generation. So it would have been around the end of the PlayStation 2 and stuff when they were talking about
They were done
Sony.
with Sly Cooper, right?
Yeah, and they pitched Sony. I think they were still third party at this point, and they pitched Sony on a game called Uncharted. That was about exploring an island filled with dinosaurs. And Sony's like, interesting.
And the island originally had ghosts in it, but they had to cut those out.
But it's very weird. Then now that comes up with Uncharted, but I can't imagine. I would love to know how it actually happened, but the way they described it was it's just the word Uncharted. It's reasonable that 2 studios came up with the same name. It's not like Sony was secretly channeling that name, but maybe they did. Wouldn't that be interesting too?
I mean, it's a good name for a game, just even outside of where it landed. It could be anything. It's just exploring something that's unexplored.
Yeah, there we go. Number 2, Kyle?
Resident Evil 3.
That's right.
Remake, which is really just off the back of how much I liked Resident Evil 2. I don't have a lot of nostalgia for 3. I played it for the first time in 2013 or 14.
Oh, wow.
We are going to fact check you, so if you got it.
Check my Vita save file and stuff. But I liked I liked Resident Evil 2 so much that I want more of that. You know what I mean? I want to see and there were little things that I heard, they announced that I guess 3 had multiple endings, and I guess the remake isn't going to, which is weirdly exciting to me. I would rather just have one campaign to go through. Even 2, I didn't they're the 2 campaigns you choose from. I would rather have just everything take place in one campaign, you know? And it just, I'm curious how they're going to implement Nemesis. Resident Evil 2 is so good. I'm just excited to see what's next. I'll check out the multiplayer game. I like that they're packaging that all together. I think that's smart.
I think, the asymmetrical stuff, I'm curious to see what that's like. I'd like to, maybe just because some D&D stuff coming through, but I think I'd like to have somebody just mess with me in my game. That seems fun.
Yeah.
But did you watch the latest trailer?
I don't think I did.
Nemesis one?
Recently? In the last couple days?
I
missed it. No.
It had me a little bit concerned. It looks good, obviously, but I think what I'm excited about with Nemesis is for just a more dynamic Nemesis, and the trailer was very cinematics heavy, so it's just a lot of cinematics of Nemesis busting through a wall and attacking Jill and everything, which is all well and good, but I just hope that they carry forward and have it not be I hope that he's flexible and that it's not as set piecey
Sure,
as it was
yeah.
in Resident Evil 3. I want him to actually be dynamic and stalking you in a Mr. X style way.
I mean, there are definitely important set piece moments that that will be there, But
yeah,
I see what you're saying. Like, I hope he's doing more interesting things between those moments, right?
Apparently, he
Yeah.
has new moves where he can I don't think this is in the original, but some sort of tendril that he can reach out and grab you with and stuff. So he doesn't just have the bazooka. So
Cool.
Yeah, check out that trailer, dude.
I will.
My number 2 is Gods and Monsters.
Hey.
Covered. Surreal.
We did it.
Number
so
1.
I made this list before we knew that restriction. So before I knew about the confirmed thing. But my number 1 is maybe right now a tie between Half-Life Alyx and Breath of the Wild 2 if it's out this year.
Just go with Half-Life Alyx. Then,
Okay,
right?
so Half-Life Alyx.
There it is.
I'm very excited to see what Valve does with VR and in their next major single-player game. Just because if any game is going to draw people to VR for that particular game, it's going to be this. And so I think for most VR games, it's hard to break out of that. If you have a VR headset, this is something you should play.
Yeah.
But don't necessarily go out of your way to buy a VR headset just for this, right? And it's really sitting at an interesting time where it's you can also make that argument, right? That you can get a VR headset for Half-Life Alyx, but then you also have Beat Saber and Pistol Whip and a couple of other games that
You have a backlog that
yeah,
you
that
can
you can
get excited
so
about,
it's a pretty good time for this game to come out, to just have someone to push someone over the edge of getting a VR headset. And I'm interested to see Valve did not want to make another Half-Life game unless they had a good idea for it, and if VR is as good a technical reason to release another Half-Life as they're going to get. So I'm curious to see just to answer the question, were other developers just kind of not figuring out the tech, and is Valve going to be the one that's no, you cannot play this game outside of VR, which is I think it's a fair criticism of the game of well, I'm going to have to spend however much money to get the most out of this game. It's kind of I don't know that I want to buy a good PC and then also a VR headset for this, so there is kind of a high barrier to entry. But on the same side, I would want them I would prefer that they not make a game that you can play on a regular PC, because otherwise, what's the point of putting it in VR?
We want
right?
them to push the envelope.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I want to make I want them to make as strong a case as possible for playing games in VR can actually playing the kinds of games that we want to play in VR, which is these major story based and not just here's a fun game we came up with and we're gonna get the most out of it. I want to see that happen, and I'm a pretty big Half-Life fan. I like 1 a lot. I love 2 and the episodes and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what they do and what a Half-Life game looks like now when shooters are so different, and is this gonna feel like a relic, or are they gonna have so many new ideas that are gonna remind us of oh, Valve. It was at one point one of the preeminent, people in the first-person shooter
Will
field.
people say Daddy's back or not?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to go back to that world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That world is rich and interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's a little weird, how in Congress it's gonna feel oh yeah, the city was oh, it looks so good, and then in a couple months it's gonna look like something out of 2014. But
Yeah.
I that is a thing I'm willing to very easily toss aside to see a new Half-Life game.
Yeah. For sure. Jeff, I'm number 1.
Yeah, number 1 was Cyberpunk, and
Oh,
I
wow.
just want to reiterate that I think a lot of the through line for a lot of my choices were it's just a company taking the kind of risks that we want to see from people. And for Cyberpunk, I feel like CD Projekt Red is one of the hottest developers at this point right now, and and they are taking a crazy huge risk doing this completely different kind of genre and setting and all those kind of things. And it may very well end up being a disappointment for what people are expecting from it right now. But I'm just happy when developers they don't just sit at the top and say, okay, let's make Witcher 4.
They could have made another Witcher
This is
game.
what's going to sell. Let's do something crazy. We're going to put a ton of time and investment. Same thing with Ghost of Tsushima, where it's we're going to have to invest a ton into trying to do this new thing, and it's scary, and we don't know how it's going to turn out, but let's go for it.
Do you think the development's going to be hurt by their small-scale Witcher game that they're releasing this year as well, according to Surreal Vasquez's
I never said that they would be
predictions?
the one to make it.
Oh, tricky.
It could be based on the Netflix series. That's the reason I was banking on it, is because
There you go.
Smart.
some
There you go.
company's gonna make a Witcher game. I didn't say.
Did
the
you listen to
CDPR.
last week's episode, by the way?
Yeah.
Was
Where
it
we just
frustrating?
Made fun of you.
I think the legs akimbo is such a phrase.
What?
When you guys described what kind of games would be made for me, you guys said I'd be into pervy stuff, and at some point you said
You don't like legs akimbo?
No, I'm not. Can't say I'm a fan of that. But when it's used to describe me, I guess.
Do you think there is a developer that currently has more goodwill than CD Projekt Red? Like, not just factored in like Spirit Bomb and Dragon Ball, right? Like, so all the players, all the goodwill they've had for their games, so they have to be popular. Like, I think it's gonna be like Supergiant has a ton of goodwill, but obviously their fan base is smaller than CD Projekt Red's. Is there any developer that could get a larger Spirit Bomb than CD Projekt Red right now? I think they're number one.
Maybe Respawn, but like I feel like that even dipped. Like Apex, it was super high within the couple weeks, but now it's kind of down and up. And
the
Star
people
Wars
that have played Apex Legends for 8 months have a lot of complaints about very specific things at this point, right?
I mean, CDPR has had their stumbles, like some of their stuff around labor practices and some of their social media managers.
Oh, no doubt.
have had major stumbles.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to root for them in some sense because of like. Their origins is like, we were just kind of like more or less kind of partying games a little bit. So like their origins are pretty cool. Like they're from a region that you don't hear a lot of out of relatively compared to like stuff like San Francisco or Japan or things like that. But yeah, it's really cool to see them kind of become who they are, especially when considering like. When Witcher 2 came out, even I was like, guys, these CDPR guys are really smart about making games. Yeah. Their last game wasn't super good, but like
stick to your legs akimbo games.
Yeah, that's right.
Shut up.
Yeah. Plus, they still put little notes, I think, in every physical release. It's like, thank you for buying our game. We worked really hard on it. It's like the Pixar. They have the directors come in before the film starts, and they're like, we worked really hard on this.
I love it, but what I hate is then when they roll clips from the trailer during that. It's like, don't show me the middle of the movie right before I'm about to watch it. Anyways, number one, Kyle?
My number one honorary Breath of the Wild 2 mention, I suppose.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
I'm glad someone talked about it.
But my number one is Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, okay.
If that's the one, like I said, if all these 2020 games are laid out in front of me, that's the one that I would pick up and be like, I want to play this right now.
Yeah. I love that's a good way to put it. If they're all right in front of you, what do you pick up? What are your top 5?
Yeah.
That's what we should have done. No. Mine's Final Fantasy 7.
Oh, really?
Remake, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Let's see. Other details I didn't get to. They released a screenshot of what looks like the materia equipment screen, and it looks like the planetarium in Cosmo Canyon, so a fun connection there, because that's where you get the huge materia as well.
I understand these things.
I love how nerdy you get into, like, because I think about, like, what game would I get this insanely, like, I would just devour every little bit, and it's like, maybe if they really remade Ocarina of Time at that level, that's the game that I would be like, I would devour every little detail the way you have been devouring.
Right. But imagine if Ocarina of Time had like a rich world to devour.
It do.
Burn.
It do, baby.
It's a lovely world. I wouldn't call it rich.
I just like that you're telling us all these anecdotes when none of us know anything about Final Fantasy VII.
No, I'm taking the Emily Reese tip. I'm telling the one person listening to my voice right now.
Well, then look at the camera when you do it, not us.
Your excitement is infectious, is what I'm saying.
That's very sweet. Other games in 2020? Run down a hot list.
Doom Eternal.
Doom Eternal.
I'm pretty excited
that was on my short list.
It was interesting because like I remember when that game came out and everyone was like super like excited about it, and I was one of the people who was like, it's good, I really liked it, but it's like I don't think it's like Game of the Year material. But it's like that kind of put into perspective like how many of my, I don't know for you guys, but like how many conversations I tend to have of like I like it, it's not that good, but like. The more I learn about Doom Eternal, is like, oh right, I really like this game. Maybe will it be Game of the Year material? Maybe if it builds on the stuff that Doom 2016 did. But like watching that trailer and hearing like that Mick Gordon just like heavy ass metal, like I really want to play that game.
Yeah. It's coming out March 20th. 2020, so same day as Animal Crossing.
So I'll be killing demons and you'll be like trying to build them a home or whatever.
That's right. Remember when the creative director left? Didn't Marty Stratton leave id? Wait. Yeah, he did, right?
Yes.
I believe that happened. Am I losing my mind?
Saying, then yes, we all remember it.
Okay. Other games people want to shout out? I'm sorry, Tim Willits was the one that left id.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. We all knew that. I was waiting for you to find it.
The Last of Us 2, which I'm not going to say that I'm anticipating it. I am in a Star Wars position of it where it's like, I don't necessarily need more of this, but I know that when I sit down and I play through it, I'm going to love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is shocking that none of us had it on the list. I'm sure people are screaming.
I mean, my sort of, because like the funny thing about that is like I talked about Little Nightmares 2 and how like I didn't think that game needed a sequel, but when they announced it, I was like, oh, you know what? I do kind of want to revisit that. Where Last of Us 2, when they announced a sequel, I was like, I don't know if I'm really eager, but I'm with Jeff. I'm like, when we play that game, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like excitement level, I'm not really eager to feel sad and uncomfortable while really witnessing these violent scenarios, you know, and like crying my eyes out.
I'm more excited, and this is twisted, but I'm more excited just to see the production than I am the story.
I mean, Naughty Dog to me, like their strength is performance capture, more so than like gameplay even. Like that is the thing that I get excited about with a Naughty Dog game is like seeing performances from actors and how they're sort of digitized.
Even though they
and,
still animate the faces compared to just capture, which is stunning.
Yeah,
It's still,
I mean,
all those faces are still hand animated. I know
That's
they're
crazy.
like, at least with Uncharted 4, they were veering into like maybe we can do some sort of fusion, but at least as of Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy, they're all still hand animated for the faces, which is incredible.
But it is strange that it wasn't on any of our top 5, but like I'll be there day one, like absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's just a testament to how good they are at storytelling, where the first Last of Us feels like such a complete and good story that it's like, I don't know how, I don't even know if I want to go back, because it is, I love it the way that it is right now, but I'm sure when I do, I'm going to love it just as much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to really enjoy it.
I don't know. That's sort of like where I come up with. Is like, what if they made a sequel to? Well, they totally did that. Like the Harper Lee, didn't she make a sequel to Kill a Mockingbird?
Did she?
Didn't she write one? I feel like I heard about that at some
I know
point.
there's a sequel to Little Women called Little Men. I just learned
Really?
that. Yeah. And then there's another one called Joe's Boys.
Okay.
Okay, that
really
franchise
went
is. I don't know.
I went down a real Little Women rabbit hole, which is a weird phrase.
Did you go see that movie?
I did. That movie rules.
I want to see it.
It is like, I left that theater and I was like, that is too much life packed into 2 movies. Like, I
I'm excited.
cannot
I need
handle
to go.
it.
That's
I need
like
to go see
from
that.
the same director as Lady Bird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Greta
should totally
Gerwig.
see
Oh,
that, yeah.
she's incredible. Yeah. Anyways, that's Little Women, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm excited. I wanna
Psychonauts 2
see
is
it.
coming out this year, guys.
Psychonauts 2.
Yeah.
Psychonauts 2 is on
Very
my sort
curious
of
to see what that
secondary
is like.
list.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be fun to see Microsoft pushing Psychonauts 2 after they ditched publishing on the first one. Now they come
They
crawling
still have
back.
time to ditch it.
And
I still have time to
more exciting than that, we'll probably, hopefully, see some of the Two-Player Productions Double Fine documentary stuff around Psychonauts 2. Very excited about that.
Other game we should mention that maybe people are screaming about is Hollow Knight Silksong.
Oh, I didn't think you'd go in that direction. Yeah, for sure.
I'm excited for that.
Did they say 2020 for that?
I think so. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure. It's one of those games that started as DLC and became a huge game, and looks like, at least stylistically, a continuation of what they did in the first game. It's not some radical art departure, so
Yeah.
that helps it speed up development a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, that's one of those games that's like I'm excited about, but that's also a tough game. So it is going to be like roll up my sleeves and sit down and get ready to play the new Hollow Knight.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to call out and congratulate us all for not putting Halo Infinite on this list, because I went through the thought process on that one.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's eligible because it is 2020,
Yeah.
right? They've said that. And I am excited for it. I'm anticipating it, but I really had to stop and say, like, what is that based on other than just like the few snippets that they've showed? We just don't know enough at this point.
Okay.
So I felt like out of all the other things, I know more about them. I have reasons why I can say, hey, this and this and this is why I'm anticipating this. This is just kind of like the vague promise that they may be going back to what made Halo great to begin with.
Mm-hmm. I debated putting it on the list, and it's primarily like I'm excited to play a new Halo game on PC day one. Like that is my excitement. That is that
angle.
weird concrete thing
so
that I
funny.
think is fun. But
Masquerade. Bloodlines 2, Vampire
yeah.
Masquerade, Bloodlines 2.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a game that I've been, like, the original was, like, JV obviously really likes it, and I've been hearing, like, people like, oh, this is a really cool game, but it's,
Cult
maybe
classic,
yeah,
right?
kind of
Yeah.
hard to go back to. So my biggest hope for that game, honestly, is that I don't need to have played the first one to play this one. But if they're able to deliver something on that level of, like, if it is as good as that one, I'd be very, like, I like the idea of what they're doing is, like, here's a vampire world that they kind of can't talk about, them being vampires, and a lot of the RPG joystick mechanics that they have in that game sounds really promising.
Yeah. Do you think that game will have some runoff love because of the Outer Worlds? Because the two leads for the Outer Worlds, they were the two creators of Vampire Bloodlines. So they're not like involved with the sequel, but do you think there's going to be some weird loophole thing, or is that too Kirby for most people?
Yeah, I
It's
think
too curvy.
I think very few people will make that will have that familiarity. So.
Sure. That's cool. Let's see. I'm looking forward to Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is still just 2020, but them modeling the Earth is nutso, and it being on console, I think it's going to be super cool.
I saw that I was going like through the Wikipedia list, and I
Yeah.
saw Flight Simulator, and I was like, oh, that's a Hanson.
I think that's going to be cool.
No,
man.
that is
That's a
an
Molten
interesting
for
idea.
Holden
Yeah.
right there for Hanson.
Age of Empires 4, they don't have a release date, but They're probably going to be pushing the console so much this year that Microsoft will probably save this for 2021, but I'm ready to be surprised. Ooblets, that is a game that Double Fine was publishing, but now under Microsoft's rule, I don't think they're publishing games anymore, but it's going to be an Epic Games Store exclusive on PC. I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah, that game looks adorable.
Yeah, it's basically, it seems like it has components of Pokemon, but then also Stardew Valley. It seems like it could be a lovely indie game this year. Minecraft Dungeons, Minecraft Diablo. I think I'll have a great time with that when that releases, even though you can't build in it, which is odd. Avengers.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I think we're all in.
It's
We'll
got
see
Kamala
mode.
Khan in it. I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
that's
there we
cool.
go.
Yeah.
Moving Out. It's another indie game where it's literally about moving and it's co-op and you're like
That's the
hauling
Stadia
couches with
one,
each
right?
other.
Did they show it at Stadia?
I don't know if they did. It's not exclusive to Stadia if they did show it there.
If they can pull off the opening a door with your back tech, I think it's going to be a game of the year.
It should be a VR game now that I think about it. I hope that's the second half of Half-Life Alyx is just moving out of City 17.
Piling up all the furniture in the hallways so that
that's right.
Gordon can't get through them later down the line.
Spelunky 2. He has not confirmed it for 2020, but it was supposed to, I believe it was 2019 originally. Also, Derek Yu, same creator, that UFO 50 game.
I was just going to say I didn't think of that one, but yes, I emailed him like 10 times while I was at Game Informer, just like, like every 6 months or whatever, being like, hey, we're really interested to check this out when it's ready. And he was always very nice and being like, yep, I'll tell you when it's ready.
You got to leave me alone, dude.
Yep.
Let's see.
12 Minutes, which is like that indie game where you're kind of trying to figure out how to not die when the police invade your house, and there's supposed to be like this ridiculous number of permutations that can happen, and trying to figure out how to properly solve that puzzle over the course of however many hours that game is.
Yeah,
seems pretty interesting.
Kind of in that same vein. I mean, different type of game, but that sort of indie, sort of interesting mosaic, I think looks really cool. Which is just this like sort of dark, creepy city that everyone's obsessed with their phones. I'm not even sure what kind of game it is, but the art is so interesting.
Yeah.
Another one that I didn't even realize had a name, but the Dark Pictures Little Hope. Just kind of the follow-up to Man of Medan.
There was a teaser for that at the end of Man of Medan, I think, right?
Yep. And it seems like it's kind of like horror in the woods is the overall style for Little Hope, but that could be interesting. Let's see, Warcraft 3, the remaster is coming out in January, which I would be more excited for, but I went back and played so much Warcraft 3 before I went on that cover story trip for Game Informer that I feel like, I just played through that campaign, played some multiplayer matches. Like, I'll check this out for sure, but I'm not dying to play it again.
Later this month, Kentucky Route Zero.
That's right.
Episode 5, yeah,
the TV edition, January 28th. That's coming out. I've been hearing about that game for so long. I want to finally check it out.
I mean, I remember doing a feature on them for Game Informer like two or 3 years ago about like, hey, now they're finally kind of like closing in, and hopefully this game will be out this year, and it was not out that year. But hearing about their kind of development history and how like they kind of for a while had like part-time jobs while they were making that game, and that game's long road to release, I think is interesting. So
do you guys think Skull and Bones will be coming out this year from Ubisoft? Are they going to be saving this for like their launch of the new gen game? Seems like a good slot for it.
I mean, when was the last time they showed it?
2018.
It wasn't that long ago. I bet it was 2018.
Yeah.
But then they didn't show it 2019.
Right.
And haven't said anything or shown
I
any
bet they're moving it
trailers
to
or
next
anything.
gen. I bet this is going to be one of those weird zombie U-esque, like, got to be at their launch Ubisoft games.
I hope so, but it also, like, I think the main thing that everyone said about that was, super cool, awesome, we're happy to have another pirate game, but you don't get off the ship, so what's the point? It's like it's a weird, it's just like ship fighting.
Do you want them to get off the ship?
I want to get off the ship. It sucks, but I want Black Flag, a non-Assassin's Creed pirate simulation game. They're so good at open world stuff like that. I would like to see a non-Assassin's Creed version.
Yeah. That would be an overhaul, man.
I don't know if that game will come out.
That would be a very big and expensive overhaul.
Yeah, I don't know if that game will come out this year, but I'm almost like positive that they're going to have like a 10-20 minute demo at E3 this year.
Sony's gone, right? So they got to fill that time.
There's the League offshoot games like Ruin King, a League of Legends story from Airship Syndicate. I'm really looking forward to that, like a turn-based RPG in the League universe, but I don't know if it's going to be 2020.
I'm not like a big League fan. Like, there's this like part in the back of my head that is always kind of disappointed to see that it's Riot and not Valve who's doing that, because like, like if they made a story-based game based on like Invoker or Ember Spirit, I'd be like, awesome. Those are the Dota heroes that I care about. That's amazing. I can't believe they're doing that.
Isn't it called the Warcraft 3 campaign?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
But like the fact that they're doing it for League is like cool, but only insofar as like I would love to see this applied to the other one.
Yeah.
Right,
Not this
right.
one. But it's
Do it
super
for the
cool to see
thing I
Riot.
like.
Yeah, I would love to see them actually like, however many years down the road and maybe like break out and make a new franchise because they have like so many like the moment they publish, they try to say, hey, let's make a AAA game like these other guys. They're immediately like top of the field in a lot of cases because they'll have like the immense amount of resources that someone like EA or Ubisoft have at this point.
Yeah. Other things, Rainbow Six Quarantine, which is that co-op experience, 3-player, I believe. That could be interesting. Curious to see how much of the Siege community goes over to that one. Lego Star Wars 2020, just Lego Star Wars releasing sometime in 2020. They haven't set a release date. Maybe with the release of Rise of Skywalker on DVD. Do people still buy those? That seems like a good timing, but I'm excited for that. I like Lego games in general, and especially with them shaking it up so much with this one and kind of embracing more of an open format. I'm excited about.
So 2 other quick ones, Ori. Will the Wisps.
Yeah,
that's
very excited
February.
for that.
That's
I would
right.
actually, between the versus Hollow Knight, I think I'm more excited for Ori, just because that's more my speed. It's more closer to Rayman. And also Super Meat Boy Forever is one that I like. I want
Really?
to play.
Speaking of, it's weird. There's a certain Duke Nukem Forever and Meat Boy Forever also taking forever
Yeah.
to develop.
Oh yeah. So maybe we'll see that this year. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I played it at PAX one time. I mean, it's a gosh, what is that genre? Auto runner.
Yeah.
But like, when it's done well, I like that genre a lot, and I liked what I played at Super Meat Boy Forever. So
Yeah. Are you excited about the Pokemon DLC, Kyle? It was announced last week.
yeah,
I think it's a really smart avenue for them.
I would take that. I want that so much more than a third entry that you have to restart. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely, I would take that over. And also, now the question is, my estimation of my prediction about Pokemon that we wouldn't see a new Pokemon entry this year.
Oh, right.
Did that cause them to
Does it
scale down?
does it count? Was I a successful prediction or was it wrong? Because there is new content this year, but it's not going to be
basically the equivalent of
It is,
of the third game.
But it's not. It's
But
not
you said
gonna
there
get
wouldn't be a
standalone
third
release.
game,
I said
right?
there wouldn't be like a third game.
We'll judge
and
it
there's
at the
not a
end
third
of the year.
game.
We'll judge it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's hilarious.
I know there's already some folks who are upset about Pokemon getting DLC and feeling like it should have been there to begin with. But I love it. Like I will, like I said, I will absolutely take this over Pokemon. Whatever gun,
and
because that's the thing of playing Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon for review. It's like I gotta start over. Like I've been building this team. Let me just
Right.
I want to see the new content, but I want to have the team that I've fallen in love with. You know,
I saw Jeff let that mic fall off the table again. No, I'm very excited
So I think
about
it's a
it.
good thing.
Yeah, I think it's smart to do the split DLC releases a little bit like Breath of the Wild style. Also, speaking of Breath of the Wild style, I like that both of the new areas in the DLC are both going to be like the wild areas. So
Yes.
seeing Game Freak experiment more with open world design, maybe even some more narrative elements in those open worlds, I think that's very
That's
interesting
exciting.
and clearly where they want to go in the future, which is very exciting overall. The other thing was, I'm sure everyone's screaming about Elden Ring.
Is that this year?
They haven't said. This
Yeah,
is the
that's-
From Software, George R. R. Martin joint. Do you think it's coming this year?
No.
I don't think
I
so.
believe it is.
You really?
I believe.
Do you think
believe
that'll be
in God.
Sekiro DLC?
No, I
They
don't
said
think-
there will be.
I don't think they've
I don't think
communicated
they've said
anything.
no.
I mean, those guys are quick.
That's the thing. It's like they know how
But
to
George
crank.
R. R. Martin is slow, so
That is true. He's taking forever with those item descriptions.
yeah.
I don't think it's going to be this year, but I also wouldn't. I'm not going to. My head's not going to explode if suddenly it's a November release. I'll be impressed for sure.
I
I'll
think.
be impressed if it ends up being an actual game.
What are you talking
Really?
about?
It's announced. There's a
I
pre-rendered.
know.
From Software knows
Oh.
how to crank out
Well,
games.
if they make a pre-rendered announcement of something, then it always becomes that felt.
Give me 5
that
examples
felt
where
like-
that hasn't
That
happened.
felt just like such a. Hey, we need stuff for E3. Let's
No.
show this.
See, I think that
You're loony.
I will say, I think it set like a tone and like here's some art about the world that we've created. It's not an announcement of a partnership. It's an announcement of here's what it's going to look like that we've
Sure.
started. But I mean, I also see what you're
I'm
saying.
And I
just
think
saying,
the George
I
R. R.
hope-
Martin thing is in the backdrop. Like he just is supplying some lore and stuff. I think the bulk of the work here by a mile is From Software,
I
and they're
hope so.
only known for cranking stuff out throughout their entire history.
And that's great if it comes out. I'll be
0%
happy.
chance it's not coming out. You're a lunatic. I'm insulted by this
We
suggestion.
we always forget the ones that don't come out, and then we always say, "Oh, hey, remember that thing
Yeah,
that
name
was
a From
announced?"
Software game that didn't come out.
Tenchu.
That became
Wait, what are you
Sekiro.
talking about?
I tried to sink that under there.
Wait, it's not like they announced attention
I will
and then
say
didn't
there
like
is
it.
Scene 2.
to get behind Jeff a little bit, that was. I mean, I think that they just kind of go off in their own direction. You know what I mean? Where they started making a Tenchu game, but then they're like, we'll make it our own thing. And they're maybe something could happen here with this. Like maybe Martin isn't going fast enough for them, so they make it their own thing and it becomes a different game.
Dark Souls 4.
They wouldn't need to. They'll just make Elden Ring, but Miyazaki can create the lore again. Like,
But maybe it's called something different.
why call it something different?
Why did they call Sekiro Tenchu and Tenchu, or why did they call Tenchu ended up becoming Sekiro when they could have just called it Tenchu and used the brand name that was already established and known?
Right. But I think that's different because Elden Ring's just a new IP. So like, if they lose George R. R. Martin, they lose
I guess
him.
that's a good
no
point.
Big deal,
Yeah,
right?
because it is brand new. So.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready to move on?
Please.
Hey, the only reason we're in this basement recording this podcast is because of the community and the support of the community on Patreon. Patreon.com/MinnMax, 2 N's. Still new people finding us. I try and message. I know I don't get everybody, and I apologize, but people trickling in, I message them and say, like, how'd you find us? So many people are still coming around like, oh, I've been meaning to support you guys for a while. Listen to you guys on the Game Informer show. Want to get around to it. Like, it's still, it melts my heart when people are still like, oh, what's this? MinnMax, I should actually support them. So check out the Patreon, see if any of those benefits are interesting to you. If you're a $5 supporter, you get to listen to this show one day early. You also get access to exclusive chats, commentaries, fun stuff like that. And then also MinnFax, which I guess we don't talk about too much. But if you want to go behind the scenes of MinnMax, that's like a weekly stream for $20 supporters. And then you can listen to it as an audio podcast. And it's us really getting into the nitty gritty of how this whole thing works, what we have planned for the future and stuff like that. So please check that out if you're interested. And look at this hero. Superhero Cinema Scoop from Riley Hill. Superhero Cinema Scoop is proud to sponsor MinnMax. Superhero Cinema Scoop is a new YouTube channel dedicated to bringing you all the up-to-date news on your favorite superhero movies, shows, and video games. News from Marvel, DC, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spawn, and many more are represented. Videos are uploaded at least once a week and can be enjoyed by the whole family. Just search for Superhero Cinema Scoop on YouTube, and remember, that's cinema, spelled with an S. Thank you so much, Riley. Really appreciate the support. Checked out his YouTube channel this week. He gave himself the Hot Ones challenge, which he's the ultimate hero for just like, just roll this camera, let's go for it. And yet, family friendly, does not swear in the video as his tongue is falling apart.
Does he have a video about Michael Keaton being in that Morbius trailer? And
not yet. Not when I checked.
Why it's so confusing to me.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not confusing at all, and I'm making it more confusing.
No, it is the most confusing thing in the world. It's very distressing. So it's the idea of like Sony Pictures and their Venom weird sub Spider-Man universe where they technically own the rights, but in the latest Morbius trailer, it certainly seems like they're roping in Vulture from Homecoming into this Jared Leto Morbius movie. So I've already had a tough time explaining, to some people like why the X-Men aren't in the MCU. I guess now it's different, but at least back in the day. And now trying to explain like, well, no, so the Sony Spider-Man movies are part of the MCU, but MCU doesn't see it that way. It's just a one-way street. Like, it's just such a mess. Anyways, I'm sure that Riley Hill over on Superhero Cinema Scoop with S's will be covering all that stuff.
And it sounds like the MinnMax community really embraced that and like went and started watching his videos too.
Well,
released a nice
he
video,
made a video, like a thank you message and stuff. So it was very sweet.
I thought you meant the Michael Keaton thing.
Yeah.
No, they're revolting against it.
But that's
revolting like a vulture.
That's like super cool. I think that's the kind of sponsorships that we want, and it's cool that it's actually doing something for him and that the community is actually taking the time to check that out.
Absolutely. Also, new people at the $100 tier have put pictures like Jesse Vitelli over there.
Adorable.
We have a new best dog of MinnMax here with Jesse Vitelli putting his cute dog on that screen. If you're a $100 supporter, you can choose what image is back there.
Brian.
Yeah, beating down Brian. Get a cuter dog.
He's gonna send you a photo with like the game he's from. I forget the name, but like, and then that, and then also his dog. He's just gonna combine best
Plague Tale.
Plague Tale.
Yeah, Plague Tale, and
he's gonna
I've
Photoshop his dog into a screenshot from Plague Tale.
Yeah.
I think
He
wants
has to do it now.
I think he wants to put his dog in the world of Plague Tale.
Don't tell him what he doesn't want to do.
Kyle, it's fake.
Oh, okay.
So every week on the Patreon page, if you're a supporter at any tier, you can leave a question, comment, word of wisdom. We collect everybody's, a lot of great stuff. Thank you to everybody that left a nice message or comment question. Christopher Reardon kicks things off here for the community feedback section. He says, hello.
Hi.
The best S game that doesn't begin with super is Shadow of the Colossus. Or Star Ocean 2.
No, it's Shadow of the Colossus.
Then also there were comments of people saying, hey, what about Star Wars? Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah.
Stalker? Street Fighter 2.
I think it's pronounced Stalker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
fair.
Can anybody argue that Street Fighter 2 is the best S game?
Yeah,
Which
Shadow
is
of the
funny 'cause
Colossus.
It's like
Personally, I like Shadow of the Colossus more, but
the irony is that like the best version of Street Fighter is Super Street Fighter.
No, but the impact of Street Fighter is absolutely undeniable. Certainly.
Also, somebody wrote in saying StarCraft.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, we're
obvious
dumb. We get it.
suggestion. Very, very obvious suggestion.
Look, it's
for
hard
the
to think
best
of things in the moment. Okay, you think you're so smart
We don't
when
have the
you're
internet
like,
when
let me
we're
go
doing this."
Wikipedia this, and I'll tell them what's what.
And you can hear as I'm typing every time I'm frantically trying to look something up.
Clackety clack, clack,
Gotta
clack.
sound smart. Russell Christian says, hello, Ben, 2Ns, and fellow MinnMaxers. With the recent delays by Square and Crystal Dynamics being announced, I was wondering what the hot take by everybody was at the table. My opinion is no delay is bad if it makes the game better and prevents crunch, but April just became one of the busiest months this year. On the 3rd, Resident Evil 3 Remake releases. A week later is Final Fantasy 7, and the new release date for that is April 10th. And then less than a week from that, Cyberpunk 2077 on the 16th. I'm prepared to mainline caffeine and not get a full night's sleep until May. Woohoo! It's college finals all over again. But my gripes aside, what does the table think of the delays and the now very busy April we have?
I think that's a good point about the sort of because like spreading out games is good. Delaying games don't bother me at all, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they did it one time, but now it's like it's whatever. I'll play it when it comes out and it's good. But
It's not going away.
It's not going away exactly. But like
It's not a Elden Ring situation where it could be gone in the blink of an
Just
eye.
wait.
and but squishing everything into April that's a little troubling. You know, like,
I'm personally not
I don't know the
worried-
solution to that, but you know.
Yeah, I'm happy to give the developers more time.
Yeah,
Obviously, I'm looking forward to these games, but hey, take your time. And I think the crunch detail is very important here.
Yes. Yeah.
At the same time, I just don't believe Cyberpunk's coming out on April 16th.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely going to get pushed. I don't know this, but it just feels like of all the games, and especially with this, now that they know they have the competition, it's like, why not give themselves more time?
Did Witcher 3 get delayed at all?
Yes.
Yeah?
Several
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
probably
could
right.
see them.
I could see a delay coming.
And we talked about it before, but especially with like Microsoft and Sony probably hoping and begging and talking to CD Projekt Red, like, please make this a launch game on our next gen systems. Like, come on, you guys.
Come
2 words.
on.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm personally not worried about it just because, like, I'll play those games when they come out. It can be concerning from, like, if you want those developers to do well. But, like, that's a case where all 3 of the releases there, I'm not super concerned about them not selling because they're on that day.
Right.
Like, Final Fantasy is going to sell. Cyberpunk is going to sell. You know, maybe one sells more than the other because of that date. But it's like, I think those games will all be.
We're going to sell Avengers after playing it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the one thing I wanted to bring up. Like the Final Fantasy VII delay, I totally understand, totally behind it. Take those extra couple of months for polish. The Avengers, that's another warning sign of like, what's going on with this thing?
You think it's just kind of in scramble mode, like every game is, I'm sure. But,
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about that. Do you think it'll still ship September then? Do you think this is just them delaying the inevitable, which is an even longer delay?
Yeah. I mean, I think they would. I don't know. It's
just so
such
weird.
It's such a, and we should say it's such a question mark for us too in terms of what that game actually is. Like we haven't seen that much.
yeah.
We've had the demo. We've heard some stuff about it. I think people have a lot of first impressions from those kind of things, but you can't judge a game based just on that.
Right. And it's just so weird to me still that they're going to release a living game, what they say is a living game to some extent, at the very end of a console cycle. So it's like I'm rooting for them to delay it further to be at the start of next gen. That seems like it would make so much more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's like, I think Stadia was touting that as one of their big games too, though. So I wonder, I'm sure all these delays, Stadia are like, punching a hole through their hat.
Phil Harrison does it himself.
That's right. Jared Barzy says, greetings from Kansas City. Hello, Kansas City.
2 ends.
With the recent news of Sony not being at E3, I wanted to see what the panel's thoughts were. Well, I think E3 has some issues and companies are doing their things their way. I was a bit surprised Sony decided not to participate in this year since they're launching the PlayStation 5. Another factor is Microsoft will be at E3, so from that standpoint, it just seems like a mistake to not participate. Is this reminding anyone of the Sony post-PS2 going into the PS3 where they're overly confident? Yeah, what do you guys think about the delay? We made like a news video kind of summarizing it, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not delay, but them saying they're not going to be at E3.
I mean, it's sad from a consumer point, but like as a group of people who have attended E3 multiple times, it is one of those things you walk around and you're like, is this necessary? Like, do you have to be here? Like, how
Totally
important
necessary.
is?
And I think
Like, I don't think Sony loses anything by not being
Yeah,
there,
they could have a thing like the Thursday before all the pre-E3 stuff and be
sure
as relevant to the conversation as they would have been otherwise.
100%. And I think there's definitely, like we made that news video and I was kind of bummed out walking through my feelings on that reveal. Just because you want the big head-to-head showdown.
Yeah.
But
like,
we'll
that's
still
fun,
have it. We'll still have plenty of YouTube videos popping up about who won E3, and Sony stuff will be roped into that. Their announcements around that time. And I think there's also everybody talking about death of E3, Sony not being there, it's such a disaster. Yes, E3 is dwindling, and this is a blow for sure. At the same time, you got to remember who's telling you that, and that is journalists who are attending E3 and walking around the show halls. It always makes me laugh when so much of the conversation on E3 podcasts is like, boy, the back half of Kensha Hall is looking pretty barren this year. And it's like, people just want the reveals. And if there's headlines out there and the news is getting out there no matter what, that's the core. We're too focused on our experience at the show floor versus people on the internet just want some game news. There's going to be game news there no matter what.
Well, sure, but then at that point you question why not just have E3 just become Video Games Week when everyone just has a series of video announcements and there is no show.
Right.
That's kind of the opposite end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does suck that E3 is kind of dissipating to all these different things. And if it was a video game week, that would be great. But it seems to be trending more towards, well, we're going to do our own thing in September and we're going to do our own thing in April. And you're transitioning to these focused, one company telling you exactly what they're going to tell you, and you're not getting journalists coming in to play these different games and giving their own experiences
to offer up
based
the
on
counter take of they showed this, but when I played it, it was like this, or hey, they played it and by the way, they also had a demo. They may have had a CGI trailer, but when you actually played it, the experience is totally different. From what
and I think there is value in having everyone under one roof and kind of that distillation of these were the most important things, or this was the most fun thing that we played. You can't get that when everyone's spread out.
It's also it also hurts the in between companies more. Sony not being there, it doesn't matter. But someone
matters.
It doesn't matter for
it doesn't
Sony.
matter to Sony. Sony, it's
it doesn't
not
matter for Sony.
But Sega or Atlus or someone who has maybe showing off smaller titles that you wouldn't travel. If you're an international person, you're not going to go to E3 just to see the latest Atlus game. Well, unless it's Persona or something. But but if you can go see Nintendo's and Sony's and Microsoft's things and also see all this other stuff. Yeah. Then you're going to go, right, and see that stuff. So I think that's the stuff that ends up hurting is the people who can't afford to have we're going to have a conference too. It's no one's going to listen, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a wild time. I'm sure, they'll do the state of play and the Death Stranding style announcement was a week before.
I mean, that stuff is
last
super
year.
fun. And it is fun to have it all compressed in one place, but is it a benefit for Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo to have their announcements all during that week? Does it benefit them in any way outside, or is it better for them to just have their own individual week or day outside of that? I don't know. But as a consumer, I like it. It's fun.
And that's kind of the difference between competition versus monopoly, where you can do all your own things and it's just your message and you have total control over it. Versus, I mean, I'm sure they may not see it as advantageous to them in any way, but for the consumers, it is.
It is, yeah.
Justin Swart says, "Hey, Ben and the CLCs. Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, recently said, as our content comes out over the next year, 2 years, all of our games, sort of like PC, will play up and down that family of devices. We want to make sure that if someone invests in Xbox between now and when the Series X comes out, that they feel they've made a good investment and that we're committed to them with content." Essentially, he is saying that the Xbox games will be cross-gen for the first year or two. What's your take on this? Do you think Sony will go this route as well? It seems like a pro-consumer move. This is one of those subtly wild things that they've kind of already revealed just with their strategy with Halo Infinite, I guess. So it'll release an Xbox One. It's all the same now. Because everyone is just so locked into next gen, and Microsoft's the only one saying it doesn't really exist anymore, you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because that's something you're talking about, Avengers getting delayed and stuff like that. It's we got to hit that next gen. It's do we? I mean, everything's going to be backwards compatible. It's not going to. I mean, what's the leap between Xbox, PS4, and 5?
I think there's still going to be a little bit of a stigma, even if it's backwards compatible, for I want to play a next gen game.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I will want to play the best version of those games, and the best version of those games are going to be on the next gen console. But I think it's just getting blurrier and blurrier. That line is dissipating more and more every generation. So.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move. I think it's fascinating. It kind of boils into Microsoft's strategy with releasing games on PC as well, where it's like, well, I don't think I want to buy the Series X then in any way, right? If I can just play this stuff on an Xbox One or on a PC that I can just further upgrade. But if they're just investing that much in software and they're planning on making all their money from software, then win-win for them, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the PC approach. It's consoles adopting the PC approach of just like, well, you can play a game on your computer. Like how well it's going to run, is a question. But at least with consoles, they have like 3 SKUs versus a billion. So presumably they'll be able to work with that. But
yeah, I'm very curious how that's going to be worded though. Like even at the end of trailers for like Hellblade 2, if it'll say will not run on base Xbox
you've got to
One.
have a cutoff at some point.
So how they're going to message that? Because that just seems like it's going to be really confusing for consumers when there is a complete cutoff. But do you think Sony will go that route as well? I don't think so. I think they're more into the locked thing.
Yeah.
Other than it is backwards compatible.
That's important to them this generation, which is cool. But I don't see it. I see it as like a fun bonus to owning that console as opposed to like, blurring the line between generations like as much as Microsoft is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Matt Booty has said some crazy things like on the when I interviewed him on the Game Informer Show podcast. That's where I asked him about, asked him about like Double Fine after Psychonauts 2. And that's what he's saying. Like, he's like, oh yeah, we want them to keep releasing cross-platform games even after Psychonauts 2, even though they're a Microsoft developer. And it's like, what? Like, that's just wild you guys are doing this.
I mean, the money's always been in software, right? I mean, always.
Yeah.
You sell the console at a loss and you make it back by selling software.
That's
right?
what they say. Kieran Robinson says, which of the next-gen consoles will you personally buy and for what reason? I'm really looking forward to the Series X. I think I'm going to get it day one.
Yeah. I like all those ports on the back, man. I'm super into it.
I'm for sure going to get a PlayStation 5. I can't imagine I would buy a Series X. I have a PC. I don't know why I would want it.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean,
I'll probably still get a Series X because I'm a sucker.
You're just going to get both?
Eventually, yeah.
Which one are you buying first, though?
Presented in front of me, probably PS5 just for the exclusives, yeah.
Jeff,
and they will.
You have to say Series X just to sound
I'm
fair and
sorry,
balanced.
but that's how exclusives work, and that's why Sony still makes them.
Yeah.
Is because it's especially important in the launch time when you have 2 consoles like that. It's like, well, which one am I going to buy? Of course, we're all going to say the one that has the exclusive games that you can't play anywhere else.
The one that plays Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
It might be. I mean, I don't know about you, Cup, but it seems like we might need to get them for like freelance stuff. Of like, well,
that's all.
Just to be thorough, have an X to review this game on. If they send us a Xbox copy, then to some degree we might want to have
that's
it.
a whole like write off on your taxes.
Yeah, but like
business
if I were not
salary.
in this industry, I'm fine with my PC and PS5.
Yes,
at some
yeah,
point.
for sure.
Marriott Player says, hey, all, what's your fondest console launch memory? Going back into the annals of time itself.
That's pronounce that. That's how you pronounce that.
I think it's probably the Wii.
Wow,
Because
really?
that was like the first one where I like. It was an event for me and my friends, right? Like it because like the Xbox One we missed out on launch actually because like we had a very frustrating night where it's like, well, my parents aren't home, neither of us can drive, like we don't have a car, so it's like we called a Walmart and they don't have it anymore, and so like we were trying to figure out like and it just ended up not working out, so we didn't get one until like the following March. But like for the Wii, it was like we were there like 7 a.m. to pre-order it, and so then we went and we were like first in line to get it, and we got it, and like it's like me and two of my friends, and we drove out of the GameStop parking lot, and one of us rolled down the window, started yelling like, "Yeah, first Wii!" And then we drove and played Twilight Princess for however many hours.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Again, you could have played on your GameCube.
Yeah.
Well,
it wasn't out on GameCube.
Yeah, it wasn't out on
back then.
GameCube yet.
Oh, really?
It was
Like
in
it was
December.
staggered?
Yeah, they were staggered.
Oh, interesting. Diabolical.
Yeah, I mean, but the Wii was super exciting because it was different. I was working at GameStop at the time, and I remember being so excited when the Nintendo rep brought in the Wii like standee for people to try out, because that was the first time I got to play the Wii, and I was just losing my mind. I was so excited while they were setting it up because I was like, I get to try this thing with these motion controls. It's gonna be something completely new, and it was ultimately kind of underwhelming, but like at the time, there wasn't anything I was more excited about. A brand new Zelda with a console that was unlike anything else, for sure.
Also, my first reaction to holding a Wii remote was like, it's smaller than I thought it'd be. Like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, all the advertising made it seem like a lot bigger than it actually was. I don't know why. Like, the scale of the console was just kind of off for me, and when I held one, I was like, this is smaller than I was expecting
But
it.
then they put the big chunky condom on there, and then you're like, now it's got the girth I crave.
That's right.
For me, I guess it would be PlayStation 2.
Oh, okay.
That was so incredibly exciting because my mom was very sweet, and she actually waited in line to get that for me. And so I remember, like, she was picking me up because the bus would drop me off on this country road. It's a long story. I lived in the boondocks and stuff. And I got off the bus, got into my mom's car on the day of the launch, and she hadn't communicated to me all day, obviously, like, what had happened. So I got in the car, and, like, just wide-eyed, like, did you get it the PlayStation 2? Did you get the PlayStation 2 on launch day? And she was just, like, talking about the weather, and, like, how was my day? And I was like, just tell me, did you get it? She's like, yeah, it's sitting at home. And I was so excited. And I went home, and it was Tekken Tag Tournament and SSX. And the sad thing was that she got the console, but they were sold out of memory cards on launch day. So for the first, like, week or week and a half, I just played the hell out of those two games, but then was not able to save. So, like, I knew those opening tracks to SSX so much.
I had a similar story with memory cards, but ours went a little differently because, like, we had it was Gundam Journey to Jawarhello, which is like the early PS2 Gundam game, and so we played it, and then we realized it was like the first time it's like, oh, you have to save to a memory. What? Because, like, we had a PS1, but we never, like, we didn't use it that much, and it already had the memory card, so it's like we didn't really worry about it, right?
Yeah.
So we never swapped out memory cards or anything, and then we realized, oh, okay, well, it's like 11 p.m. We can't do anything about it, so we just left it on overnight, and hoping it didn't, like, you know, because our PS1 eventually blew up, and so, like, we had to figure out a way, like, okay, we're gonna just keep playing it, but don't turn off this PS2 because we've beaten this game at this point, and we've unlocked, you know, a bunch of other Gundams. But if I swear to God, we need to go, like, early morning and get a memory card so we can actually save this game. So it was like us playing a ton of that game, which is not a good game, but, like. Us having to worry about, like, God, if something happens to this PS2, man.
Yeah, I played the beginning of Onimusha over and over and over without a memory card. It's weird that, like, that happened in that generation. I don't know why.
Yeah. Jeff and for you is like the Magnavox or whatever the hell.
No, well, I told my N64 story last time of I talked my mom into taking me out during, like, the launch window and, like, actually finding one, and then her telling me, no, we can't actually, I'm not actually letting you get it. I just didn't think we'd find it. And so I think
I hate her too.
I think it was probably the Xbox was probably the first one where I was old enough to just buy it myself, but I don't have any, like, I think I just brought it home and played Halo or Dead or Alive 3, which was cool. But it wasn't
Didn't have to worry
a big
about a memory
event.
card.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
I still have a weird history of, like, getting a game before I have the console. So, like, I bought Banjo, like, I won a copy of Banjo-Kazooie for, like, a Toonami sweepstakes.
What?
Before I ever have it.
Like a TV sweepstakes?
Yeah.
You wrote into Tom himself?
That's right. And he gave, well, because the grand prize was actually winning a console, but I only got a copy of the game. And so it was mailed to me, but I didn't have an N64 because I was kind of banking on that sweepstakes. And then I had a copy of Melee.
I was banking on that sweepstakes.
Well, because it's like, hey,
healthy sentence.
Well, because, like, I was a kid. Like, what better way to save money and not have to, you know, work for weeks on an allowance? And then I had a copy of Melee before I ever had a GameCube. So, like, for, like, maybe 4 months or something, I had I can't wait to play Super Smash Bros. Melee when I get this GameCube.
Mine was Mega Man X4 that I had before I had the PlayStation,
Oh, wow. Captain Stubbs1 says, I just did my PlayStation year in review, and is 2,576 hours in a year too much gaming? Do I have a problem? That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Serial's got some numbers to throw up there, man. Like, I was blown away by yours.
Yeah?
I had, like, I had 300. Well, it's funny because, like, a lot of my Mortal Kombat 11 time was, like, just setting AI to farm, like, towers and stuff because you can just have them go run through that.
Yeah.
So I have, like, 320 hours in that. And
wow.
But, like, the most surprising thing is that, like, that is a game that I just basically left on idle for a while. But then, like, right below it is, like, Destiny 2 with, like, 5 fewer hours, which is, like, that was like the most depressing part of, like, like, this game that I just left on. I played Destiny 2 for basically about that much without doing that.
What was your? Do you remember?
And then I also
total?
played 80 hours of Destiny on PC. So like,
Oh my god!
I played a ton of Destiny.
Wow.
So who was it? This was
Captain Stubbs.
yeah. So you're fine, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was only at 291. I play a lot of Xbox.
I don't remember
so.
my like actual hour count. I can maybe look it up if you want.
I was really bummed out when I saw mine because I think I've just been playing so many more games on PC recently. Yeah. And so like. It's like, oh, it turns out I barely played my PS4 in 2019. It was wild. It was like Black Ops 4 was my number one.
Oh, really?
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's
insane. I love those stats. Like I got to see how many hours I played Death Stranding, which was 40.
Yeah.
And it's like I just want that all the time.
You
Like
get that on Steam, Kyle, when you play PC games.
Yeah, but then I just walk away. I have. It's funny. This is my own fault, but my Shadows of the Empire on good old games. When I was streaming it, I would just leave it on because I use my MacBook to do work and stuff, and then I just left the PC. So it says I played Shadows of the Empire 100 hours.
That's my. I don't think I even got that email. I don't know where you guys are getting.
There's
these.
a link that you go to.
Yeah, but regardless, my
Can we do
numbers.
yours live?
My numbers would all be tainted because I fall asleep during games all the time.
Hang
and
on.
it
We're
just-
going to do this live for you, Jeff.
I've got 1296 hours total, but that's only on PS4
need
because I
the
play a lot of
URL?
Switch
Does it
and
tell
PC
you how
games.
many hours you've been on Netflix?
No, no.
Oh,
it
that would be
doesn't.
Your
helpful,
top game was
wouldn't
Netflix. You can't stop. 0 hours in PSVR.
Do you need the URL or you got it?
I think I got the URL.
So he does have to log in. So you might, if you want to like.
How many
With-
platinums did you guys earn?
With your bank account.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's kind of like a weird system.
And social
Bank
security
account,
number.
Yeah. So just
And
get rid of
list
mine
of greatest
there.
fears.
But I do, yeah, like the 3D. Steam has it, which is awesome. I love that, just tracking your stats. And I loved the 3DS. Just had the list of your most played games with the hours next to it. I just want that on.
I don't know why Switch doesn't do that. Why are they being coy about it? It's
I don't
like,
know.
you've played for 20 hours or more. You could have played this for any amount of time, but it's at least 20 hours.
And then the other thing
Yeah.
is, Xbox does it sometimes.
You assume that I'm going to remember my. I may have like
scamming
the
you,
password
dude.
saved on my.
Just look it up on your
browser,
phone, yeah.
'cause I don't have.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But Xbox, certain games it will tell you the hour count. Like it's just
why,
arbitrary.
Why
It
hide
just
that? Like the
depends. I
Epic
don't know.
Store
Where
didn't
am I
do it for a
going?
while.
Here, you
Like,
just
why
Google
hide that
it.
information?
I can text
Slash
you a link
played.
if you wanna do that.
Here we go, sir. This one's for you. Well, Jeff figures that out. Fred DeNovo says, recently Nintendo and Sony sent out everyone's 2019 most played games on their respective systems. As we are in the prediction season, what would you all predict are your top 3 most played games across any systems for 2020?
Well, Destiny, duh.
Is that true?
Probably.
That
I've
sucks.
already put a bunch of hours into it. It's like this year. It's probably my most played game of 2020 so far.
Do you really think, though?
I
Number
think so.
one?
They're gonna put out another expansion pack, and like that's when getting in on.
They
those
haven't
games is
announced
good.
that, have they?
There will be some like big Destiny thing.
Okay.
Whether it's Destiny 3 or like another expansion pack or like they just keep the season stuff going.
Yeah.
There will be new Destiny content.
I could see Animal Crossing being pretty high up there this year for me on Switch. I think obviously Final Fantasy 7 Remake, but I mean I don't know if I'll play that twice. So how big could that number be? I expect like maybe 20, 30 hours, something like that.
What are the big Switch games this year? Like Animal Crossing is the big one, right? And then
No More Heroes, maybe Bayonetta.
Yeah, I can't
Pokemon
imagine,
DLC,
Yeah.
which I can't imagine those would be too huge. But maybe on Switch, if it's good, maybe
Yeah.
Gods and Monsters. You know?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the developers of Odyssey, they know how to sink some hours.
I would also like to announce that I'm just going to retire as soon as Guilty Gear comes out. I'm going to put a billion hours into that. That's my prediction for
So
2020.
Jeff, I'm
I
signed in.
clocked 1,289 hours of gameplay
Damn.
Okay.
or sleeping.
or sleeping. Yes. It says I played
all the same, man.
14 games.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
Hey, that's fine.
Dreams was 116 hours.
Holy
Wow.
moly.
And I don't recall falling asleep too much during that one.
Well, you
Dragon
have to
Quest
play
Builders
that game.
2 was 49 hours, and then Far Cry New Dawn was 38 hours. Those
Oh,
were
wow.
my top
All right.
3, apparently, which those numbers don't add up.
Why?
If my top game was 116 hours,
Yeah.
and then 49 hours plus 38 hours, I've only played
16
13 games, and it somehow adds up to 1,289?
Come on. What are you, some sort of brainiac? Cool it with the math.
These numbers don't make any sense. But there you go.
All right.
Longest streak was 15 hours I played a game during.
What do you think
or
that was?
slept. It was sleeping. It's all sleeping. It's just,
Longest streak of sleeping.
Is your TV
this
cursed?
is how I fall asleep.
11
My
hours
top-
On your couch?
Yeah,
do you
my-
just game on your bed? Is that what you do?
Pretty much. It's become my bed. My top game online was The Division 2 with 11 hours.
I'm surprised Days Gone is not on your most played list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how those numbers add up.
That's confusing. I love seeing the stats there for sure.
love
Yeah.
Mark Cruz says, "Do you have gaming guilt?" I will explain. I love Pokemon and Monster Hunter, and those games are built essentially to never end, so most days I spend my time playing one or two of them after work. But I often think I should really beat Outer Worlds or Devil May Cry 5. Then I just end up playing more Pokemon Sword Shiny hunting. Do you guys have that? A lot of gaming guilt in your life about, I should be playing this. Why am I still playing this?
I think my hierarchy of gaming needs is like, anytime I'm playing Destiny, I was like, man, I should be playing something else. And anytime I'm playing something else, I'm like, man, I should be playing Dota. I'd had more fun playing Dota. If
Never happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the struggle that we all deal with of that what I should be playing versus what I want to be playing.
Right.
And I try very hard to just go with what I want to be playing.
You let it all
go.
go.
You should just be having fun. That's the whole effing point of this hobby.
Right.
Just play the games that make you happy.
And there's that thing too, of like, I need to go back and finish Astral Chain. It's like, you know what? If I really wanted to do that, if I was having that much fun with Astral Chain and not just curious about what the second half of that game's like, I would have done it by now. I gotta let it go.
I'm on file 9 of that game, and I'm at the point where it's like, I had a weird arc with that game of like kind of struggling with it first, and now I think it's too easy. But like at this point, I'm just like, I feel like I'm just finishing it to finishing it. Like
Right.
I'm not like in a position where it's like, I can't wait to see what they'll throw at me
But
next.
agree, it's a good game.
Yeah, it's good. Like it's good, but it's like I'm not in a position where it's like I feel like I've gotten out of this game what I'm gonna get. Like
Yes.
putting however many more hours to finish it is not really gonna like affect my enjoyment of this game one way or the other.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
maybe there's some crazy thing at the end of the game that changes.
Final
but
boss is
that
the
is
dog
always
character.
the thing, right? Like, but how often does that actually happen? Where,
Sure.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Muffin Crumbs is speaking my language, saying, "Hey Ben, I heard you say you're a big fan of Survivor. How excited are you for the all-winter season coming up? War of the Winners is this season, and it's the 40th season of Survivor because they do 2 a year, so the math gets a little bit confusing. But they're bringing back champions from across all the eras, and it's super exciting because it's like back in high school then, like early high school, the first season I watched was season 2, and then season 3, the winner there was Ethan, who's awesome as I remember him from early high school, and now he's coming back and playing this new season. Like, I just love it that it's drawing all these old timers in and just realizing like, Ethan's still a player. Like, it feels like in Pokemon, remember where they said that like Ash like let go of his Charizard in a recent season or something? It was like, wait, it's still the same storyline that I watched back in the day. That's how this feels with War of the Winners. It's like, it's still going on. You can still pull from Ethan, for Christ's sake.
So that's your huffing for a muffin?
That's my huffing for a muffin. That's right.
Is that well?
I'm very excited.
I'm not a Survivor viewer, but like,
Hey,
don't the more
you
recent
should be this season.
don't the more recent champions have an advantage because they're younger and more fit? Like, how much of Survivor is like?
But it's cerebral too.
It is. It's social politics, the game. So you can win a number of different ways.
Okay.
And like, typically the younger, more
Cultural
fit players
victory?
early on, it's like, they're a threat when it comes to the challenges, so we need to vote them out, right? So it's a lot of trying to balance about like, I want to be a threat, but not too much of a threat, and be pushy, but not too pushy, so.
What if the twist this year was that when people are eliminated, they actually die?
Oh, that sounds great.
Would you still watch it?
Would I? And it was like a brutal, grisly death on screen?
Yes.
It'd be more comfortable than what happened last season.
Kyle.
I do.
Yeah, he did. He pulled us aside and spoiled it for us. I remember.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I do remember that.
It was
but
unbearable.
No, but honestly, if people were actually dying
No,
as
I
part
wouldn't
of it,
watch it.
Okay,
What if the-
that's all I want to know because
contestant signed
I'm
waivers?
guessing it would be a hit either way.
What if after
In
they died?
2020, that would be the #1 TV show.
What if after they died they showed you the new Final Fantasy trailer?
Then yes. Yeah. Zion Gonzalez says, will you guys do a best of this generation prior to next gen? Maybe like best 15 console games of this generation and best 10 Switch games. I'd love to do something about recapping the generation. I don't know what it would be.
Wait, I thought we
That was the
did.
decade, which spans 2
Yeah,
generations.
Yeah, generation.
Oh, like a Wii eulogy for the Xbox
Yeah,
One.
exactly.
Yeah, no, I love. We did
Well,
it
the
for.
Xbox is still alive. It's just going to be a Series X.
That's right.
We
Guess
did,
what? They're going to get back the Ethan Xbox for the new season.
I love it because we did 3DS at one point, right? Which
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'd be totally up for doing that for PS4. Or something.
Yes, we would like to do that. Trevor Corbin says, when I was younger, I mostly played online games with a few single-player games sprinkled in. As I've gotten older, I find myself becoming bored and unsatisfied with online games very quickly and pretty much exclusively playing single-player games. How have your guys' taste in games changed over the years?
Definitely on board with that. Was it Trevor? Or said
Yes.
that? Yeah, that's I don't get a lot out of playing multiplayer games generally anymore. So I play mostly single player
Anymore.
Yeah, I went.
Did you ever get into online stuff?
Halo 2 was
Halo
huge. And after that, I go through the same set of emotions with all multiplayer games of like, and it just doesn't feel, it rarely feels like novel or exciting to me to play. Even like something like Overwatch with all these like new mechanics and things like that. It's like, well, this still kind of feels like my favorite matches from Halo 2. Like I've had this experience before, and where single player games to me generally feel more novel and interesting and new to me. So,
Yeah. I think even though I still like JRPGs and they're still in my heart of hearts, like that was my main thing back in the day, right? Like early deep dive into gaming, and now it's like, yeah, there's a lot of JRPGs I don't get to, or I'll start plenty of them and be like, oh, that's nice, but yeah, not for me anymore. It's wild how much I think the genre has left me. I haven't left the genre.
I actually feel like I've gotten more into multiplayer games. Like I wasn't like a big multiplayer guy before even Dota. Like I'd even like fighting game stuff. I would play like the arcade modes and like, oh, I beat it with every character and like play with my friends occasionally. But it wasn't like a thing where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go out and find people to fight against in my local arcade. But it was like Dota was like the first time I was like, oh, I guess I'll try it. It's from Valve, you know, like they have a pretty good track record, and like that was a game that kind of like, oh, like the ways human opponents think is like so wildly better than like any CPU. So it's like just the idea of playing against that and trying to like beat other people at a game was like Dota unlocked that in my brain for me. So I've been more into multiplayer games since Dota, basically.
David Gilman, hello. Do you guys have any rules you try to stick to when playing open world games like Witcher 3 or Assassin's Creed Odyssey that have every icon under the sun when you open up the map to avoid feeling overwhelmed? For instance, I only do stuff that I would logically run into while moving from plot point to plot point. It's an interesting strategy.
Yeah.
Jeff, you got any hot tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the main tip of just abandon your compulsion towards completionism and just really focus on the main story. Like you're probably going to get more out of that. I guess like try each type of side quest, side activity, you know, and if you really like do the ones that you really like, ignore the ones that you don't. But I think a lot of the time you can just stick to, when you stick to a main campaign, like you're still going to get a 20 or 30 hour experience most of the time, and that's going to be enough for you. You know, like that's something I've personally tried to do with more games, especially since most of the games I play are open world, and like I don't feel like I'm missing out when I actually do get myself to do that.
Yeah.
I still have that compulsion to do everything on the map, but like there are certain games that are better about it. Like I know The Witcher 3 had a really good system where it would categorize the side quests by like, here's a main quest, side quest, and like a treasure hunt. And then at some point I just abandoned the treasure hunt since they weren't really doing anything for me. But like all the side quests in that game are good enough that I had fun doing them. But it's like finding like, okay, what is my cutoff here? Finding appropriate cutoffs and not compulsively doing everything is something that I've tried to get better at.
Yeah. Stud Muffin, great question, Stud Muffin, saying, how do you decide what to wear? How do you decide what to wear?
That's kind of a weird question.
I really am tickled by this question.
What's still clean?
What's still clean? But do we all have clothes that technically we could wear, but you just, I'll never.
Yeah.
That's not even on the table.
No, I told you that. That
You
was
got
my
rid of it.
get a load of this.
That's
a
right.
couple,
Throw it away.
A couple weeks ago. Yep. I packed all that stuff away, and now it's just shirts that I actually that spark that, you know, whatever Marie Kondo says.
That's right. I think a lot about what
Joy.
day it is.
Joy.
I think like starting to do the video version of podcasting has changed it a little bit, where it's like, well, I guess I should wear a nicer-ish shirt if I'm going to be on video that day. And then also with the MinnMax studio, I think, well, I certainly need a long sleeve shirt. Otherwise, I'll freeze to death in this hellscape unless we hit our 15K goal and get a studio. And so that's a factor, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've been wearing this hoodie for like 6 months now because you said don't wear black down here because we would blend in with the background. And
look at
apparently,
this guy.
I'm the only one who still follows that. This was the only.
This is gray. This is light gray.
Yeah, you're doing okay, sir.
Yeah,
I'm
we're all
sorry.
doing fine. But yeah, I think there's a certain formula of you want to shake things up, but then still maintain upper third favorite clothes.
yeah.
I think
like
is where
I
I'm at.
save shirts for certain days. Like, I'm going to be
Right.
going doing a bunch of stuff that day. I'll wear the shirt that day.
Hey, here's a question. I think I'm a clean guy. Kyle, you can smell me. Very clean overall.
all right, yeah.
Thank you. But do we all this thing where sometimes you go to some clothes that have been sitting there for a while, not worn, and they just smell weird?
Like in your drawers and stuff?
That's right. Do your drawers smell weird?
I think that's probably a drawer problem more than anything.
I don't have drawers. It's on a shelf in my room.
shelf.
You have shelf problems. I don't
Do
know.
your
Is it a-
guys don't
does
clothes.
your-
Your clothes
does
don't
your-
stink if you.
No, not
let it
until
sit
I
there?
wear them. Like,
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're like in a closet or something, then they can kind of start
No
to
closet.
smell.
No closet.
Then maybe does your room just smell?
Is
No,
your room
it's the
haunted?
clothes.
Do you have maybe get some kind of like what are those the things that like will help absorb moisture in closets and shelves and stuff like that? Maybe get some of those.
And just put them in my room?
You put them in your closet. Like they're
I would wake up like a prune.
yeah, probably not.
We
but
don't know what's going on with you, Hanson.
some
That's the
drawers,
bottom
man.
line.
Please write
Yeah.
in. Do your clothes smell if you haven't worn them for
Go
a
to
while? This is what
IKEA,
I
get some
wanna know.
drawers. And,
Okay.
you know.
Steister is getting us back on track by saying the best S game that doesn't begin with super is SimCity, you idiots.
Now Shadow of Colossus.
pretty
We
good.
figured that out a little while
we
ago.
got it. He's probably right. Adam Walker has a little testimonial here, which is interesting. Last Friday night, 15 to 20 MinnMax friends from the Discord successfully had our first official Halo community night.
That's right.
It was roughly 3 hours of laughter and utter joy. Several of the participants, myself included, later stated it was some of the most fun they've had playing multiplayer video games in years. So thanks for helping us bring us together. The Discord channel has now been rebranded Community Game Nights for like one of the channels within the MinnMax Discord. And we're working on building lists and polls for upcoming sessions to include more platforms than just Xbox. I know I'm not a, quote, to the top level supporter. To the top! But I was hoping you could give a shout out to the channel in the Discord and as well as shout out to the MinnMax Xbox Club and the MinnMax PS4 group. I'd love to see what kinds of things the MinnMax community would create and play together. Thanks for all the great content. P.S. Shout out to Grizzled Gaming for being the only player Friday night to manage to finish a match with a negative score.
They
Nice.
shared this video that I'd never seen before, but I guess it's like a thing where it was like one player in the middle and then like 8 other players circling around them, like pretty close, right?
Okay.
And then the player in the middle would just spin around with a shotgun and then fire it off. And then like and that was like the that was the game to see like who it was like roulette
That's
basically.
so
And I was
fun.
like, that's awesome. That's so
That's
smart.
pretty good.
That sounds so fun. Thank you so much, Adam Walker. And thank you for, creating the Discord channel
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So that's super fun. And again, if you support MinnMax at any level, you get access to the Discord.
And that sounds like the perfect way to do online gaming at this point because
yeah.
we live in such like a walled little garden of like a utopia of online people who are actually cool and nice to each other that like if you need people to play with, that's where to find them.
There it is. Nick L says a little twist on the desert island question that
Snow.
is topical for this week's release. What is your hyperbolic time chamber video game? Jeff, you know what this means.
He will soon.
A hyperbolic time chamber. Hyperbaric?
Nope.
No.
No.
I don't know why you'd
idiot.
possibly be confused with that. It's not a hyperbaric chamber. It's a hyperbolic time
When
chamber.
were you idiots talking about this?
It's a Dragon Ball thing.
Oh,
So
perfect.
as a reminder, a day outside equals a year inside the hyperbolic time chamber.
okay.
So not something you want to play forever, just something you want more time with. What game, Jeff, would you bring into your hyperbolic time chamber?
So I want to play it for 100 years,
Well,
but it will only cost me a day.
yeah, you
In
can.
the
You can
real
no,
pause.
a day is a year.
I mean, you can go in there for a few minutes.
Oh, so
Yeah.
1 year is a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can
Okay.
just
1
like,
year in the chamber is a day in the real world.
It's basically a way
basically.
of pausing life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's very fun in Dragon Ball because it's like, we're not strong enough. I know. Let's go in the very obvious training thing that distorts time.
But for some reason,
That's
you can only
interesting.
go in there twice.
Yeah, kind of. And then you have to punch your son once when you're in there. It's very complicated.
Yeah, Red Dead. I gotta fucking finish Red Dead at some point. It's the only way-
I
Yeah,
genuinely
that's a good
think
one.
about that every other day, and I get angry.
Yeah, well, so do I, Hanson.
If only there was some way. To
I
fix
know,
Why don't
but
you
I'm
come-
playing what I want to in the moment.
Do you want to come over here and stream it?
No,
Okay. All right.
it'll never end. It
Okay.
still will never end.
All right, that's fine. Let's see. For me, it's Witcher 3, I think. I'd like to play it,
It's
but
for
just
me
like,
too.
is that
I've
right?
tried to start multiple times, and I recently picked up the Switch version. So maybe this time I will finally make some headway on that game. The furthest
You
I've gotten
won't.
is about like 6 hours in on Xbox
Okay.
One, I think. So.
Did you get out of White Orchard? The first area?
I'm not sure. I think so.
I fought some like mermen the first time I played it.
There was
They seem pretty
an
cool.
angry fetus that I had to bury related to
Okay,
a king.
that's after that. Okay.
Yeah, so I
didn't
made
get to
some
the
distance.
angry fetus.
I
I
think
didn't
mine,
get to Isaac or whatever.
mine might either be like at this point either Street Fighter 3 or like maybe Mortal Kombat. Just figure out how to get better at those
Oh,
games.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
That's
I'd have to
smart.
bring someone in with me. But I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bring your son.
I got somebody in mind.
You could get your son from the future to come join you.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, you want friends? Have kids. Brian Brown writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax crew, last week you all had a discussion of games that start with S.
What?
Here's a
the
list
fact
of
that this was the talking point.
here's a list of games that you idiots forgot.
Oh,
Perfect.
First of all Street Fighter games.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Except
know.
for Super,
Okay.
the best one, the best Street Fighter 2 game.
Space Invaders,
'Kay.
Sonic the Hedgehog,
Fair.
Silent Hill, Spyro,
Okay, so
Skate,
far I don't.
Streets of Rage, Samurai Showdown, Sly Cooper, Soul Calibur, Soul
I haven't heard of that
Calibur,
one.
shut up, Star Fox, South Park Games, Shenmue, and Stardew Valley.
I don't know
Very
that.
sad.
I feel like, with the exception of Street Fighter, I don't know that any of those top Shadow of the Colossus personally, but
Yeah, but we didn't come up with Shadow of the Colossus either.
true.
You're giving us a gimme. I can't even remember what we said. We probably said like Spider-Man.
Sekiro.
Sekiro.
Yeah, I think we said
It's hard to
Sekiro
come
and
up with
then
things on
The
the
Android.
things
spot,
that came
okay?
out that year.
Yeah,
I still two.
Also, I don't know why I'm so mad about this. I wasn't even there.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, but I think we still nailed the right answer though. That because the question was like, what is the game? What is the letter that has the best games? And we
It's
we
probably
said
S.
S quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Second best though.
T.
Q.
For the
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what
That's
categorization.
The Street Fighter, the Shadow of the Colossus, the
true.
Ico.
I can't wait for the Street Fighter, the gritty reboot. Rich Lynch says, "Hey, Ben in the CLCs, hello.
Hi.
Over the last couple weeks, I've struggled with how mean everyone has been about Rise of the Skywalker and seemingly Star Wars in general. I've always loved the series, even at its lowest point, and seeing this thing that used to be such a source of joy be trashed by the same people who spent years defending the prequels is sort of weirdly painful. So in the spirit of getting better, do you guys have any advice for dealing with jerks on the internet when it comes to stuff you love? More importantly, what can we all do to avoid becoming one of those jerks? Just avoid it.
Yeah.
Just don't
That's
step
right.
into
Avoid
that
Rise of
right water.
Skywalker.
I mean, ignoring it, but also there's one, and maybe this is like rude, but like for me, like I find a lot of solace in just, and maybe this isn't the best example because it's like criticism is all based on your own personal opinions and stuff like that. But a lot of things, it's just like as long as I'm just like this person is wrong, and it's like they can
Yeah.
just be wrong and they can die wrong, and that's fine. And
They can
you
just
know,
die.
like,
I'll let you
I
die
don't want
wrong.
them to die, but
Uh-huh.
like I just like they're wrong, and it's like
Yeah.
I can argue with them online, but like I don't want to. Like don't engage, ignore, and just know that they are incorrect
Right.
about the thing that they're incorrect
And
about.
and strangely enough, it does feel like a very Star Wars move, right? Of like wanting to be tempted by the dark side, wanting to have that
Yeah.
moment of no, and then just beating the hell out of something with your lightsaber. And then it's like, you don't got to do it.
Yeah.
That's an option. You know how you keep a healthier, cleaner life? Just don't dip a toe into those waters.
Don't.
Yep. It's
It-
it's
you'll
your
always
own
regret
fault
it.
for doing that. Yes.
Yes.
Just stay away from it.
Just stay away. You
Go
don't
back-
need to have an opinion
Go
on
back
everything.
out. I mean, obviously, continue to enjoy MinnMax and spend your time online with the
Yeah.
MinnMax community and everything.
Yeah.
But then just get away from a computer or a
Right.
screen and spend some time in the real world with people who love you and enjoy your presence, and just try and do that more.
Yeah. I try. I still fall into a real habit, though, of like, even if I'm with loved ones, and I'll still be like, well, let me just get angry about politics real quick. Like, I love this
And
stuff.
that's when it's important for your loved ones to slap that phone out of your hand.
Right, right. Tim Lauro says, recently I met the husband of my wife's childhood friend at their house, and it was super awkward.
I'm trying to figure out
The husband of
I'm trying to
your
build the diagram
So
of relationships.
wife's childhood friend.
Yes. So wife wanted to hang out with a
okay.
childhood friend, and she's married now, and it's like, okay, here's a husband. and
Right.
boy,
You have to spend time with him.
What are
now.
we gonna talk
That's
about?
such a weird. Like, how close are you to your wife's childhood friend?
Well, I mean,
Well,
if they're
his wife's
lifelong
there.
friends,
Right, but it's like that.
It's
is
basic. The question is basically boiling down to like you have an obligation to spend time with someone you're unfamiliar with, right?
and they're weird.
Yeah.
Right.
Not weird. It was just awkward.
no,
okay,
I'm
it's-
very
it's
familiar
awkward.
with this.
What? Because everybody's uncomfortable?
No,
around
because
you?
of kids. Like
Right.
if my kid wants to play with another kid, I have to. Usually it's like
you have to play with the
I'm
family.
in public with the parent for like
Using
an
the same
hour
toys.
or two.
Yeah.
Watching our kids and being like, yeah, we sure have kids, huh? Yeah, we definitely have kids.
Well, here we go.
All right.
Tim Laro says, it was awkward until I noticed he had a whole shelf of Switch games and found out that he apparently used to work at a GameStop. It turned out that we had a lot of fun chatting games while the ladies caught up. While I find video games are a very awkward topic with non-gamers, it can unite us as well. That's very true.
It
What a
is-
good point.
It is, and I always like, and I can't ever hear the question without realizing what it is. But the ultimate icebreaker is, so what are you playing right now?
Yeah.
You know, that's like shorthand for people who are probably socially awkward to begin with, myself included. But it's just an easy way to start talking about games.
Yeah,
It's an
absolutely.
easy
What
way to
have you
say like
been playing lately?
I'm willing to hear what you have to say on this particular topic because I'm interested in it also. Like
Yeah,
that's-
I love it. Like, and I think people are like, "Oh, you must be sick about talking about video games." I'm sorry to bring it up with you. I'm like, "Are you nuts?" Like, I talk about video games all the time because I love talking about them. Like,
Yeah.
I will always prefer to talk about video games versus other stuff, for the most part. But like, yeah, I had this experience recently, where like, I went out over the holidays to my girlfriend's parents' place and stuff, and like, she has some younger brothers, and like, her younger brother was like walking me through all of his Xbox 360 games for a very long time.
weird. Okay.
And like everyone in the family is like, hey, you can bail at any point. Like, feel free. Like, you don't need to humor him. It's totally fine. Like, you guys nuts? Like, we're going to talk about the weather in Seattle upstairs or I can be down here and play Marvel vs. Capcom 3? Like, of course I'd rather be doing this. This is great. And
50
then I
Cent
play
Blood on the
Marvel.
Sand. It's still a classic.
What's that?
50 Cent Blood on the Sand. Still a classic.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, Cyril, I think I'd like to, because I played a lot of the first Marvel vs. Capcom and then dabbling with Marvel vs. Capcom 3
Yeah.
again. I think I'd like to get into that series.
Yeah,
Can you help me with that?
maybe.
Are you good?
For a
Do you
prize.
understand Marvel vs. Capcom?
I like Marvel. I think that's the game that I'm worst at because it just requires to be good at that, or just watching high level plays the
Yeah.
one where I feel most alienated from it because I'm like,
Right.
oh, these people are way faster and have practiced way more setups and stuff than I will ever even learn.
But even your worst fighting game, you're so much better than us that we can still.
Oh yeah,
You're like the Mr. Miyagi. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm bad at this. Let me impart my wisdom onto you and make you 100 times better anyway. Don't sell yourself so short.
Come on,
Cyril.
man.
maybe I can.
I believe you can.
This will be my journey as well.
So I also want to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and so
2.
that's available on 360. I see you can download it there. Is that right?
It's.
Take it,
I want
Paul?
to say it got delisted. Yeah.
Is that right?
might have been
Yeah.
listed.
What do I have to do? Get a Dreamcast? What's the best way to play it? then?
Dreamcast. If you're gonna play it on console.
Yeah, better than PS2.
Yeah, the Dreamcast version is seen as like one of the most arcade perfect.
I mean, that's the
Really?
one. I as a youngster, I borrowed my friend's Dreamcast, and that was the game I played. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Is that right?
There were people playing that game on Dreamcast at Evo, so it's like and not on
Really?
PS2. So yeah.
Jeez, that's
Yeah, so
wild.
get a Dreamcast and that incredibly rare game for Dreamcast.
Yeah.
I think I could figure that part
There's
out.
probably a way.
That I will say though, like 3 is a lot more accessible. That game's on Steam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 2 seems very cool though. 3 still has Tron who's really all I care about.
I mean, it's got Frank West. It's got Arthur.
Yeah.
It's got Phoenix Wright in it.
Yeah, it's fun. That's
It's got
fun.
Nemesis. You know?
That is true. He's
Yeah.
very funny.
Dante, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Virgil.
There we go. Matthew Fulvey says, I loved high school sleepovers and the Nintendo 64. AKI wrestling games and GoldenEye being top tier. Any sleepover stalwart selections, you four could say.
Stalwart selections.
Sleepover stalwarts. Yeah, I really think about it like in middle school. I remember we had a sleepover at the school. Did you guys ever have sleepovers at schools?
No.
It was very
You made
weird.
that
But
up.
it was awesome because it's like, okay, well, now everyone just bring a sleeping bag and you can just sleep in the school. And it was in middle school, and I saw there was like an older kid that was like, I don't know, chaperone, I don't know what he was doing there. But he was playing GoldenEye on the 64. It's the first time I'd ever seen that. I think it was probably the first time I've ever seen a first-person shooter, which is very dumb. And I remember seeing him shoot the hat off a guard, and I was like, what is this? And then like diving into the multiplayer, like once he stopped playing the campaign, my mind was completely blown. That was one of my favorite gaming moments of my life. Just realizing like what is this genre? What is this console? What is everything that I'm looking at here?
Who are you? Why are you here?
That's it. Why am I sleeping in a school? Why am I the only person that you invited to sleep over at the school?
Why are we in the gym?
Why are my pants off?
Okay,
Anyways,
come on.
sleep over Star Wars. Can anything beat GoldenEye?
No.
Okay.
I had fun. Tony Hawk 3, like passing the controller. That was the kind of stuff I liked. Like, not necessarily competitive head-to-head stuff, but just like working together to try to beat high scores and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I had more fun with that kind of experience.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it was like 4-player single-screen games, like anything like the, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or like later on the Marvel Ultimate Alliance and like X-Men Legends game. Anything where it's like, hey, we can just sit here and just do this one thing for hours without we don't have to get mad at each other because we were playing a game against each other, and then one person eventually like realizes they're way worse, and so they stop kind of investing in it. It's like anything where you can just so for now I'd be like Diablo 3 would be like a
fun,
really
yeah.
good game to get 4 people together and just like play the crap out of it for hours.
your
and hours.
pajamas.
Yeah. Good one. Robin Jones says, hey, Al, just a quick ponder. Why is no one on Earth calling it the light switch? I'm absolutely stunned how this hasn't been a thing and no one is using it apart from me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is
I
stunning.
never thought of that.
I've never
Yeah.
considered that either. That is upsetting.
I'm so sorry, Robin.
They blew it.
Yeah, we'll try.
genius.
We'll try calling it.
Where's my
the
light switch? I can't find my light switch. My light switch is dying.
Did you ever buy one, Kyle?
I have one, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, because my kid just totally took over Pokemon, and I was jealous, so my wife bought me one because she's very sweet, even
is
though I don't
very
have a job.
There we go. Dylan Northrup says, I've seen several games journalists and commentators saying Cyberpunk 2077 is one of their most anticipated games of 2020. While I really enjoyed the genre and thought the demo shown last year was compelling, I cannot in good conscience buy the game from given CD Projekt Red's very poor labor practices. It's actually a little frustrating to hear the breathless coverage of Cyberpunk 2077 from outlets and from this very podcast, while ignoring the conditions workers that went through to produce the game. What is the view of y'all about the situation? Also, what circumstances around a game's development would cause you to avoid playing it, regardless of the quality of the title?
Yeah, that's a tough
we're
question.
we're in a particularly thorny situation where it's like we're doing this to some degree for our careers, right? Like, and so like we kind of, if we want to be able to do our jobs, we kind of have to play Cyberpunk. But like, I can totally see why someone would be off put by that, especially if they've had an experience specifically. Like if you've had an experience where like you experienced crunch or were like overworked, and you see someone like getting lauded despite this thing happening. I can totally I don't want to like say like you shouldn't you shouldn't feel bad about missing out on that game. At the same time though, it's like I don't know, like people cope in different ways, and so like if you're telling people to say like, oh well, don't enjoy this thing because of this thing, like I totally get that, but it's more about making people aware of that kind of fact and be able to call it out and talk about it versus like you shouldn't do this because of this reason. That's sort of where
it's so complicated because the other thing is like to boycott that game is it hurts the developer ultimately, right? Like you want to. The game should sell well. Their work should be rewarded, but we also don't want to reward that type of work ethic. It's like if you work this hard, the game will sell, but like it's so complicated. Like there's not a great answer because like if the game doesn't sell well, then and the studio falls apart, God forbid, that's like a whole other problem. You know? So yeah, I don't know. It's a really tough question.
Yeah, and that's also like every product at this point. Like. It gets into the conversation of like, where's your phone made? Who's responsible for that? Netflix has a whole terrible show that's called Rotten. That's all about food. And boy, go down those episodes one at a time, and it will just ruin one type of food. Avocados. You like chocolate? Guess what? You're not going to after you watch this. Like it has become very difficult.
It's a moral quandary.
To be a moral consumer, yes, and I don't know what the answer.
So I think the best solution that I have is like to just do both of those. It's like to burn that candle on both ends in a way. Like if you want to play Cyberpunk, don't feel bad about playing it, but also be conscious about that stuff. And like specifically for journalists, I think it's important to be able to call that stuff out when you see it, and to not like try to let's avoid talking about that because they might not give us preview code. Like I think that sucks. But like specifically when it comes to coverage, I think we should be talking about both of those things. Like I want to play Cyberpunk, but also kind of sucks that they, that they're kind of
know the amount of work that went into that, you know, and like how troublesome it can be for sure.
And demand better. Even just normal consumers, I think you can still consume the thing, but demand better from the companies that are making it.
Yeah,
and
there we go.
hopefully they'll listen.
James Smith says, hello, Ben Handsome and the Mad Max crew. Thank you. Which developers would you give the following dormant game franchises to? Okay. Here's a twist. You can't give them to anyone who has worked on them before.
Okay.
So dormant game franchises, which developer would we put on these?
Okay.
Resistance.
343. I don't know.
Get them off Halo?
No, I don't know. I was just trying to think of like, okay, aliens, shooters, like who's done good alien shooters? Well, Bungie and 343.
I think a good Resistance choice, 4A, the Metro team.
Oh,
I bet they could have a really
your
good
answer's
grounded
better.
take on
Your answer's
Resistance.
better.
That's a good answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
You did it.
Sly Cooper.
Nintendo.
Can't say Sanzaru.
That's what I wanted to say too. What about within Sony's family, the Astrobot team, Asobi?
Yeah,
In terms of
there we
like
go.
the best 3D platforming I've seen in a while. I know Sly Cooper's a little bit different, but
I will say, here's a weird one because Jack and Daxter and Sly Cooper go hand in hand. Like Naughty Dog taking on a Sly Cooper, because I think Sly Cooper is a more sort of more interesting set of characters than Jack and Daxter. I think there's more emotional depth to the cast of Sly Cooper than there is to Jack and Daxter.
and what do you want the art style to look like?
Cell shaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want realistic Sly Cooper.
Okay. You don't want that freaky Daxter art that like.
No, or the movie, the Sly Cooper movie trailer that came out. That I don't know what happened with that. That thing is just dead in the water, I guess. But
Did it never come out?
not that I'm
Oh,
aware
you
of.
mean there was a thing that someone announced and then it didn't actually materialize?
Software.
Whatever.
Yeah, and that was a movie too. It's completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And it might still come out. The Ratchet and Clank movie came out, and
Sure.
I went and
I
saw
don't
it.
care. It was a stupid joke, Kyle. Let's move on. Also, you can say Naughty Dog for any of these.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I
but-
would just like to see Naughty Dog do anything.
But the reason,
ever.
but they have made an amazing platformer. Like Jack and Daxter is a fantastic platformer.
But they haven't made one in like a
No,
while.
it's been a
though.
while.
So it's like
Yeah.
the talent turnover. It's like, are there still a lot of people who know how to make
Do
a good
they even
platform?
know how to
get
make characters jump anymore?
Good question. Good question.
They do the thing where they're holding a gun and they're like jumping over a gap. Yeah.
Hold on, you jump all the time in Uncharted.
I know. It's a joke, Kyle. Move on.
no.
Here's a tricky one. Portal.
Who's made the Talos principal
Yeah.
games? Those are supposed to be good, right?
Ooh, what about Double Fine?
Yeah.
What
The
about
humor.
Davey Reedon? Yeah, he
Oh,
made,
that'd be interesting.
Oh, okay.
more for
Beginner's
the style
Guide.
of humor and
Sure.
narrative tone.
Jonathan Blow.
Sure.
Oh, I would love to see a pretentious Portal game.
That's what they could call it.
Are there any just other huge like puzzle game developers?
Yeah.
That's where I would.
That's what
Right.
that's
He
what we're
says
thinking.
without naming.
We're talking about
Yeah.
John
Bob is
Ball.
your developer.
That guy.
Cappy.
Cappy. I'm sure. Okay. They do 2D stuff
All right.
mostly. But
Hey, 2D Portal. Okay. Skate. Skate's coming back. Did you hear? And do you know who's developing it? You'll never believe it.
Leo Vader himself.
Leo Vader himself. Let's see. You got to go for a technical studio.
Criterion.
Criterion.
Interesting. That's cool.
That's
like
it.
that.
Okay.
With crashes between people. I don't know. It's just this comic coming together. Two bodies like
Yeah.
fighting against each other.
Okay. Yeah.
This looks like a video montage where people keep falling off their skateboards. Tech. I think they would have that down.
What if it was all like, because Skate's so technical, it broke it down so it wasn't real time, and it was like turn-based, and you're controlling each joint and percentages that they move. And
that
it's
sounds terrible.
Then it's a Firaxis joint.
Sounds like a game
Just give
I
it to the co-op
actively don't want
developer
to
then.
play.
So you have like 18 different keys on the keyboard for every part of the your feet and your
Control
hands
the
for balance.
toes and
So you're saying I shouldn't launch this Kickstarter for Firaxis to make Skate 4?
Go for it.
It would be
can't-
funny
they
just to
can't
launch
stop
it.
you.
Like, hey, what the hell?
Firaxis is like, I don't think
We're not associated with this. Crisis.
Valve.
Naughty Dog.
They don't do first-person shooters.
Does anyone want Crisis to come back?
I don't know. Leo does, but
Ubisoft or Eidos Montreal, the Deus Ex people.
okay, sure. Perfect Dark. I think Certain Affinity. And I also think that they're a likely candidate
Certain
if they
Affinity?
wanted to make a new one. They did a lot of like Halo support throughout the years. They made like
Wait.
the Doom 2016 multiplayer.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
they've been in a weird spot in the industry for so long of just being on support. They had an action RPG back in like 2011 they made. I forget the name of it.
What about like people
Crimson
can
Alliance?
fly?
People Can Fly for Perfect Dark?
That's an interesting answer.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Just go
I'll take
crazy.
it.
It's
with
happening now. Yeah.
I'll take it. Fable.
Launch that Kickstarter.
Fable. I think Playground is honestly a great choice. I think that's a super fun choice.
Yeah. Fun. Yeah, no, I'm very excited to see that rumored game for sure. But yeah, as far as like other, because you think, who's the Outer Worlds?
Obsidian.
Maybe Obsidian. I don't know why couldn't think of that
Yeah,
name, but that
sure.
might be interesting.
BioWare.
That is an interesting choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Dino Crisis.
From Software.
Honestly, From Software dinosaur game.
Kyle,
Yeah.
if you had to choose though between From Software and Sony Santa Monica.
Oh, Sony Santa Monica.
Exactly. So sit down before you fall down, Jeff. I mean, Surreal.
Or Sucker Punch, right? They were making a dinosaur game, weren't they?
Oh,
Uncharted.
there we go. Yeah, just go back and make their Uncharted game.
But call it Dino Crisis.
It says in the bonus round, if you're up for it, canceled games. Rainbow Six Patriots. You want somebody who's a little bit edgy.
I mean, what's the hook of Rainbow Six Patriots? Is that it has an edgy story that's going to make
More
them comfortable?
realistic, kind of, and then like realistic gameplay, and then also dealing with real world issues.
Yeah, I'll go with Sam Barlow, whatever he's connected to from Her Story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just him?
Just
he
him.
writes
Whatever game he
strange.
can make. Yep. Scalebound.
So Platinum was developing?
Yep.
Okay. That's another one where it's like, well, what was the hook of that
The,
game? It's
the
like
Dragon's Dogma developers? Whatever team that is.
Within Capcom?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, because they have big.
They got big
monsters
dragons.
that
That you can climb.
What about
climb
this?
on?
What if you lean into like the fact that it's all about him listening to music on his headphones while he's riding and battling these dragons? What if you give it to a harmonics?
Just 'cause it
Harmonix
has
makes
headphones.
Scalebound.
Seems like you're focusing on a very specific
No,
No, this
that's
is the future of Scalebound. Star Wars 1313.
Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Of course. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, James Smith. And thanks everybody else that wrote in. You all are wonderful Patreon supporters, and we love each and every one of you. Thank you. I think it's a little time for something we call Get a Load of This.
Get a load of this. Gallet itself.
Come back to me. I need to find mine.
Great. Jeffem, kick it off again then.
Hey,
My
get
man.
a load of this.
Hey.
Yep.
It's a video
Oh, great.
that
no.
people aren't going to be able to see. You're just going to have to add the link to it, all right?
Uh-huh.
Because it's a video that people should watch.
Okay.
It's by. So this artist named Stan Prokopenko has a YouTube channel called Proko, okay? But
Not okay.
basically, he does a bunch of. I've been watching a lot of art and drawing videos for some reason.
Look at this guy.
Whatever.
Check out the bin bear.
Doesn't matter. He does a lot of great stuff himself, but then he also interviews interesting artists and stuff. And so he has one video that we will link to, but I lost what it was actually called.
Oh, no.
It's called Kim Jung-gi, How to Become a Master, okay? But basically it's this Korean artist who does drawings and illustrations. And the guy is considered a master. I had never heard of him, but he does just these insane murals. And I guess he's the kind of guy who's drawing all the time, but with like ink brushes in like sketchbooks. Every year he will basically just sell a sketchbook that is all of the drawings that he did from that year, but they are insane pictures, and he does it all from imagination. He doesn't like block anything out, and he is a master to the point where he will put on these exhibitions where he will, for 3 hours, he will draw a mural, and it will just be a giant big sheet of paper on the wall, and he will just sit there and he will draw out this just amazing compilation, like the most creative and weird drawings that you've ever seen, just straight from his head onto the page in a way that just seems impossible to do.
Yeah.
And so this video specifically kind of interviews him about his process and how he's kind of gotten to that point, which essentially is just he's drawn for so many years, and he basically just has all these references in his head that he pulls from, and then he will he will set up a scene and he will imagine it in his mind from different perspectives. And a lot of the pictures he does are with like a fisheye lens perspective.
Oh my
So
God.
he like warps everything around. And he said that basically he does it because he's selfish and he just wants to like capture more of a scene, but he just kind of intuitively knows how to work that into a perspective. And
That's
it's,
wild.
It's
Are you
some of the
looking to draw?
craziest. I have always dabbled and always been interested in drawing, but
Really?
it's not something that I have ever, felt that I've made the progress that I've ever wanted to. And so these videos are interesting to watch and see. But just even if you don't have any aspirations of drawing for yourself, like the creativity in his drawings, some of them are they get a little nudie. So
No.
if that's scary to you, then don't do it. But just
think scary is the wrong word.
crazy and interesting and very creative drawings.
The link
and
will be in the description along
Yes.
with other stuff. We should start putting it in there for
so
sure.
get a load of that.
I love it, man.
Do you want me to go next, or you want to go
I can
straight
do
up? Okay.
So mine, I'm sorry for the person who wrote in about Star Wars, but there was a tweet from Quentin Reviews called at Q Review that says, "Holy S, Screencraft just did a list of screenwriter wisdom from J.J. Abrams, and this
Right.
is the first thing." And he screenshotted part of the article. It says, quote, "I hate to look at stuff I've written and consider what it means or why I do it." Quote, "You don't have to overanalyze your work. You write what you write because there's something inside you compelling you to do so. Sometimes it's best not to search for answers and figure out what makes you tick. Leave it as a mystery, as magic." Which I think
And
is,
everyone is looking for another dagger to use to stab J.J. Abrams at this point. But his message of don't overthink it, you get what he's going for, right?
Yeah,
Like don't try
I-
and read subtext into your own work type of thing.
a little like don't try to like presuppose subtext onto that thing.
Yeah.
But it's also like a little it's you can do both with those things. You can,
Not
you
a great
can-
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I read the rest of those tips from him, and I won't get dragged back into this. But
Was one of them, don't worry about the ending, you'll figure it out later?
yeah, but one of them was like, like find the core of the story that you're trying to tell and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, I heard him talk about that so many times in interviews. Like, what was the story you were personally excited about telling in Rise of Skywalker? Because I watched that movie and I don't know what it is, other than watch me try and please a lot of Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
And I think miss. But that's just personally me. All right, anyways, Kyle.
Wait, real quick. On a more positive note,
Oh.
a quick second one is that Blake Hester recently wrote an article
Yeah.
for Polygon.com called "All the Money in the World Can Make Connect Happen," which is a very long read, but I suggest you read it. It's very good. Blake is really good at finding like these interesting angles to things of like, oh, I always wondered what happened with that. Like,
Yeah.
he's very good at finding those stories and sussing those out, and this is another really good read from him.
And the art in it is awesome, and it's
Yeah.
done by Joe Buckles,
yeah.
who's
really?
good friend of Leo. Yeah, and he lives in
Happens to be
Minnesota.
credited as Kobe Soft Joe in the article, which is interesting. But
Yeah.
shout outs to Joe. He's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Joe
Sweet.
and Blake were both Game Informer interns. and
Yeah.
Good friends.
Yeah. Kyle.
Mine's a lot like Jeffham's. And then
Another
it's really very
There's
artistic.
a guy with a
artist, too.
YouTube channel named Pro.
No, mine's very short. It just made me laugh. The DiGiorno Pizza Twitter account tweeted recently on January 13th, "We will not be at E3 2020 either, in case you were curious."
Do you like that, or is that just dumb brands
I like
trying to
it.
clumsily?
I certainly roll my eyes at brands a lot, but I like that because it's like, it has nothing to do with like anything. It's they're
Yeah.
a pizza brand. It's made me laugh. So.
Oh, that's good. It's cute. Like most days, I was talking with somebody about like burqas for Muslim women.
Of course.
Yeah, and I brought up this hypothetical of like, how would it work if there was a Muslim woman in space? Would she wear the burqa inside the spacesuit? How would that work exactly? So I looked it up. Like, what are we gonna do? Turns out there have been.
How are we going to resolve this pressing
Yeah, what's
issue?
it going to look like? Turns out there have been a total of 11 Muslims in space, and throughout the course of searching this, there's a Wikipedia article that was like Muslims in space. I'm like, yeah, I'm curious. Maybe they'll have the answer in there. And then there's an entry in the Wikipedia article where I'm like, oh, here's 1,000 times better question that I've never even considered. There's a whole section called "Praying Towards Mecca in Space."
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
here's the Wikipedia article. Malaysia's space agency, Angkasa, convened a conference of 150 Islamic scientists and scholars in 2006 to address the question, among others, of how to pray towards Mecca in space. A document was produced in 2007 called A Guideline of Performing Worship at the International Space Station. But then it's like also trying to aim towards Mecca is difficult. But then there's also stuff like determining the prayer time, right? Like, what schedule are you on? Turns out it's from the place where you launched the spaceship from. That's what determines the prayer time. There's also weird stuff like physical postures of prayer are very important. And if you're in the space station, maybe you can't do all those things. So they actually create like hierarchies of like, try to do this. If you can't, then just do this. And then worst case scenario, just imagine in your mind the different physical postures of prayer. If you're working at the space station, you can't make it work. But specifically for praying towards Mecca, it says it's prioritized as a list below. So number 1, face towards Mecca. Number 2, the projection of Mecca. I'm curious what that means. I don't understand it. Number 3, just face towards the earth. And number 4, wherever. And like, it's very interesting. Like, they have a line in here.
Number 4 is there, like, if you just can't figure it out. You don't have the instrumentation.
You need to do it. And like in this document, they also have a big point at the end of saying, like, according to Islam, traveling to space is encouraged. Like, we know it's challenging for Muslims in space, but like we're trying our best to go out of our way to make sure it's possible.
So did you get an answer for the burqa? Did you ever find one?
It turns out, they still cover everything for women, but like face and hands. So I don't know exactly.
Is it just you just tighten the fabric? I
Probably.
guess, to the point where it's
I
not
don't
floating
think.
off your head?
I don't think you need
I
the
do,
whole
man.
thing.
I love like just they'll pop up every now and then, just like how to do weird things in space that you never thought about. One was like washing your hair. Like there was this woman just walking you through like, this is how I get my hair wet in zero gravity. Here's how I apply shampoo. Here's how I remove the shampoo.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I love that kind of stuff. It's because I'd never think about that.
Talk about your favorite genre, stuff going wrong in space.
This is stuff going right in space, and they figured it out.
There was a series of tweets that one person put out that was all about like the first women in space, and they were talking about just how smart the scientists are at NASA, but how completely dense they were when it comes to women. And one of the anecdotes they brought up was one of the scientists like sheepishly came up to the first astronaut because they have to weigh everything that they're going to be bringing into space, and that's very important. So they have to go through every single item. And he came up and he was like, "Is 200 tampons enough for a week in space?" And she was like, "That's way too much." And they said like he ended up packing 100 instead. But it was just that like, who are these idiots? These are the guys who are going to be shooting you into space.
It's better to have too much than not enough.
I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
Also, you can use it for some other tools. I'm sure
Probably,
in space in an Apollo 13 situation.
yeah.
It'll also say by 100 tampons strung together.
That's how we'll get back down to Earth.
Can't climb the tampon ladder.
Hey, whatever works. Man. You gotta figure it out.
There we go. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the MinnMax Show podcast this week. Let's see. We're going to be streaming Cash and Guns
We're all
on
gonna
Thursday
shoot each
night.
other.
That's right. So that archive will also be available if you're listening to this later. If you're a $5 supporter on Patreon, you can find it there. Also, a lot of other fun stuff unlocked there. We have plenty of surprises coming up, new logos in the works, a little bit of a slight visual overhaul, a little bit of a relaunch of MinnMax is coming up in February at some point is the plan. So please look forward to that. There might be some new shows added as well in conjunction with that. But thanks for all the support on Patreon. You guys have been lovely. And we'll see you next week.
Play Chrono Trigger.
And play Chrono Trigger for the deepest dive. Yeah, good reminder. All right, be good, have fun. Let's go.